I need a shovel as well. Let's go ahead and grab a shovel. I've been watching a lot of.
Either, actually.
Wait, what?
I said I'm not sure my wife would approve, and I'm not sure your wife would approve either.
Well, I mean, I don't think that you're feminine enough that that would be on the table.
True.
I'm sharing a video of pigeons that I'm feeding.
Take
yeah,
that,
it's a
PETA.
instead of pigeon.
That's a lot of fucking cows.
It's gonna be a lot of fucking cows soon.
It's not that much. I have more than that.
When I feed them and they start fucking, then they'll be fucking cows, baby.
Feed the pigeon. Does pigeon take a D?
I think pigeon's just Pigeon.
Okay, pigeon.
And then I think pigeon with a D is Pidgin, and that's like I think a Hawaiian dialect of English.
No, it's a Pidgey.
Oh, a
The
Pidgey.
Pokemon.
You're a
I don't
fucking Pidgey from Pokemon.
Oh no! Don't you dare insult me like that. I'm at least a Starly.
Sorry, you maybe.
They're basically the Gen 3 of Pidgeotto or Pidgeot and PG.
Yeah, I only made it to Gen 2.
I didn't play any of the Gen 3, but I've watched the anime when I was finishing high school.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I don't think I even watched Gen 2 of the show. I just watched Gen 1, but I played the second game.
I think I may
The
have
second
watched Gen 2 of the show, but I know for sure that I played through Gen 3 of the game. I forget, was Gen 2 when they introduced the unknowns? Because I feel like I played one generation
Yes.
beyond that.
Yes, Gen 2 was the unknowns, because I played red, blue, and yellow, and then I played gold, silver. I never had crystal.
Oh, dude, Crystal, I think, was probably the best of the like, what do you call those? The special edition art or whatever, where it's a little bit better than all the other carts from that generation. It had like a special battle tower that actually had late game content.
Really?
Yeah, it was like you could actually have maxed out Pokemon and enjoy the game still. You wouldn't just one-hit everything at the battle tower thing.
When you just go to the Elite Four to try to do something and they all just die in 2 hits, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. Wallet removals, what the fuck?
They want to take your wallet?
Oh. They're telling me that 3 of the assets that I'm holding's market collapsed, so they're removing the wallets from their website. Sick.
That doesn't sound the best.
I mean, I didn't purchase more than $100 worth of any of them at any point in time, so
It's fair.
You're not getting your money back.
I'm somewhat insulated from losing on one of them because I've got a pretty diversified little crypto portfolio, but it doesn't have nearly as much in it as it had whenever Elon Musk hadn't tweeted about the environmental impact of fucking cryptocurrency. It all kind of nosedived from there.
He what?
He made a tweet several months ago about not being sure about the environmental impact of cryptocurrency and shit. And everybody fucking latched onto that and was like, oh, okay, well, we're not going to buy cryptocurrency and we're going to let the market collapse.
I'm confused, but sure.
Just know that rich man on Twitter make me sad sometimes.
I don't understand the correlation between crypto and the environment. I don't. I'm kind of.
Well, I mean, the idea is that the computers that are used to mine crypto consume a lot of energy, and by virtue of consuming a lot of energy, they therefore have like a high carbon footprint. And so people are sort of suggesting that cryptocurrency is responsible for the environmental crisis, as though there haven't been 100 years of the wealthiest corporations in the world poisoning the fucking planet like it's goddamn Final Fantasy VII.
Okay, I'm confused again because I use clean energy.
Some of them do.
My country does. So I don't.
One of the only ones.
What?
Your country is one of the
What
only
countries?
ones that even like remotely uses a large fraction of their energy as renewable. But even then, like the amount of energy being used by computers to farm cryptocurrency is negligible.
Yeah, it's like
Compared to-
1% of the energy consumption that
Yeah.
occurs, period. It's like not. There are so many things that you have to ignore to be like, that's the problem. It comes across as pretty stupid
cause
whenever
more
people try to make
problematic.
that argument. Like, there's probably a group of like 150 people that if you could all sit down in a room and get them to fucking commit to renewable energy resources, they would do it and we'd have no problem. But I think what we'd rather do is try to create a second version of Venus.
Yeah.
Well, that's gonna happen no matter what we do, to be honest.
Yep.
It will, because the sun increases in temperature every year as it burns through its core. And so in approximately 2 million years or so, our planet's gonna be uninhabitable
Yeah,
no matter what.
Okay, in several million years, yeah, that's not really relevant to the here and now. Like if we could ruin the whole thing in the next 100 years, that's not exactly like a better course of action.
Just making the argument, it's gonna happen no matter what we do.
Okay, so I'm sort of a nihilist on a lot
True,
of
but also
things
no.
like that, but hear me out. The part of me that loves science fiction is also the part of me that believes that there may be a way to reverse entropy, or there may be an actual way to generate free energy, or there may be, like,
Well,
you know,
can reverse entropy, because okay, so the second law of thermodynamics is only in closed systems. The Earth is not a closed system, which is why, I mean, our bodies are in and of itself like entropy reversing like organisms.
yeah, but that only happens whenever you see complexity increase, and that only happens in small pockets. And so the
Yes.
question is sort of, do those pockets get consumed by the greater void before some aspect of that loop is able to break free of the larger scale problem? Do you
Yes,
see what I'm
always.
saying? Does that make sense?
No, I understand what you're saying, and the answer is yes, always. You cannot escape it. Like, the heat death of the universe is inevitable. You're basically saying that there's a way that it's not.
I'm not saying that I know that there's a way that there's not. I'm saying that there is a part of me that believes in, you know, maybe our understanding of it is flawed, or maybe there are things that we can learn that will make it such that we can have our own little pocket universes. You know what I mean? I think that it's possible that the thing that I picture when I think of the heat death of the universe isn't necessarily such a dark void with nothing in it. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily going to be that, like, that it's not going to be that.
It's not nothing.
Well, yeah, no,
So-
it's not going to be that, but it's all going to be still, right? It's going to be like There's not going to be
Freaking
any movement
traveling
on a
at the speed of
quantum
light.
scale even.
Well, no, there will still always be quantum fluctuations, and in fact, that's the entire basis of cyclic universes. But the heat death of the universe is that all of the matter is eventually converted into energy, and the entire universe strictly consists of photons, which are all traveling at the speed of light, obviously, and all of them have the same temperature. And because they all have the same temperature, that you do not have a gradient, and gradient in temperatures are what you need in order to perform a work, and therefore nothing get done anymore. You no longer have a way to transfer that energy into a meaningful process.
And so that would also mean that the average like temperature of the universe is absolute zero, right?
No, it would never reach absolute zero, but it would be very like fractionally higher.
Like a logarithm that just forever
Yes.
approaches it but never hits it.
Correct. Because there's still going, like, those photons are going to have momentum that is associated with their wavelength, and the wavelength will stretch out. However, the wavelength can never become infinite. It will always have some value.
Well, listen, I understand that it's not realistic or founded in any of our current understanding to believe that it may be possible to avoid that inevitability.
It's fine that you want to believe that. Like, no one can take away what you want to believe.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not so much as a belief as it is like a hope, like the notion of us surviving long enough to make something like that happen gives me hope that maybe it's not all for nothing, you know, in the grandest understanding of the words.
If I'm being honest, I don't think humans make it more than 100,000 years from now.
That's generous.
Bro,
yeah,
I'd be
that's
surprised
like-
if we make it 2,000 years past now. I'd be surprised if we make it to next century.
I gave us like 500 years.
Species don't make it as long as we've already made it, to be honest. Like our family lineage, that is, has already been around for 500,000 years.
Ooh. Alright, Miss Loose Coochie. I'm here to kidnap your children.
Miss Loose Coochie. I like that name.
When
She's been
you
pooping
make your
kids,
dating
like-
sim, there has to be a character named Miss Loose Coochie, please. I don't
It's
care if
not
it's
my
like
favorite
really on the
name.
nose and just straight up you call her that, or if you call her something that just sounds like Miss Loose Coochie, like Miss Liz Coochie or something. Oh, Miss Liz Coochie, how are you? I would know what it was. I would get the nod, god damn it.
Loose Coochie. No, but seriously, this villagers. Every time I come back to see her, there's more villagers. It's like, stop pooping them. Jesus Christ, woman.
Yo,
I fed them
Enjoying
twice.
herself.
I legitimately don't know the answer to this question, so maybe you'll have the answer to it. Have we? So I know that we've established that Hawking radiation is real. So black holes do decay. They're not a one-way ticket to, you know, outside of the space-time continuum or whatever. They do eventually return what goes in the form of that decay. But do we know what actually happens whenever it? Like, I don't think that enough time has passed that any size black hole could fully decay, right?
So if, and this is a big if primordial black holes ever existed, those would have decayed away a long ass time ago. So the smaller it is, the quicker it decays away. And so if one existed like towards the early universe, where everything was so densely together that black holes could just form out of essentially nothing, then those would decay. And when they decay, they literally just decay into photons. Or rather, mostly photons, because what's actually happening is you're getting virtual particle and antiparticle pairs at the event horizon where one passes, the other one escapes, and the antiparticle annihilates with particles that exist in the universe, and those generate photons. So essentially, you can say that it just goes into, like, what is the way to phrase this in a way that is not inaccurate? If it decays into pair production, and that pair production
It
produces
annihilates the
photons.
matter with an enormous amount of energy. Right.
Yes.
Okay. So it is possible then that in a hypothetical far distant future, well, actually no. So over the course of time, there would be maybe momentary reinvigorations of
Well, I mean, they're doing it like
local temperatures, I mean.
So essentially, you can imagine it as the same way that our sun functions, where it is constantly outputting photons.
Right.
And there will be a point at which, once it runs out of hydrogen in its core, for a very, very brief fraction of a second, yes, its output skyrockets exponentially, but then it settles down again to a very constant number.
I like that you just had the answer to that question handy. I appreciate that about you.
I did do a lot of years of schooling in physics, so...
I always had a sort of, like, I mean, I've done university physics now, but historically for me, it's always been more of like a casual interest. But it was like an unhealthy casual interest. Huh?
I've been asked questions like this many, many, many times. So, like, I don't even really have to think about it most of the time anymore. Like, there are obviously going to be questions that you could think of that I haven't had to think about before, but it's probably going to be something that I've thought about at least once or twice.
Are you also really familiar with quantum physics?
Oh yeah. In fact, like, that was what I was going to do until I realized that going into grad school in engineering would pay me, and going into grad school in physics I would have to pay. So I chose.
I don't so much have a question about quantum physics for you, but since you are into quantum physics, I feel like maybe you'll appreciate this. My, I think, great uncle was Werner Heisenberg.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Well then.
My mother's maiden name is Heiss. Her family came over on a trip through Ellis Island. At the time, I don't remember if it was World War I or World War II that our part of the family migrated, but at the time they decided to shorten that name from Heisenberg to Heiss to make it sound more American and less German Jewy.
I mean, that's really, really, really fucking cool.
Yeah. So I've always felt like a very deep connection to the physicists and science communicators and shit, because I feel like just that much closer to it on that basis.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's actually, like, awesome. I wish I could claim any amount of familiarity with any sort of founder of quantum mechanics, or any fucking scientist at all, really.
Any of the big ones, anyway.
Yeah. I mean, my family is mainly, like, as far as I've ever known, very, like, basic people, farmers, handymen. Like, nothing even remotely scientific.
I think there were
artists or teachers.
I think there were like a couple
Fun.
of noteworthy members of our family tree over long stretches of time, but it's not like glamorous or anything. I think Werner Heisenberg is probably
Well, I
that's
mean, he's
the
just
one flex that I
fucking
get, but you have to be
insane.
enough of a nerd for that to be a flex, you know? you say Werner Heisenberg to most people and they're like, Heisenberg, like Breaking Bad? You have to be like, well, yes, but no.
I did not even like that show, to be honest with you, but I understand, yeah. A lot of people wouldn't know who he is.
He's burning.
It's a massive cave you got here.
Underman, where are you? Are you done fighting? You don't like my fire sword? You bitch. Give me a pearl. Thank you. Oh, hello, witch.
Give me your slime.
That's what she said.
Give it up to me.
I think most of the time she says, I don't want your slime.
That's not true. Most of the time she says, don't slime us.
Yeah, okay, that's kind of what I meant. Not that she doesn't want it, she just doesn't want it on her, in her.
Meanwhile, I have a clip that says "Come in my face."
That's, I remember that.
That shit's
was kinda
fucking
funny.
solid gold. Yo, let's roll the old roulette of the shout out and see if we can get it again.
Just teachers and artists. It runs in my veins. I am speed. And
I am
I'm
speed.
also getting beaten up by a freaking spider. Oh my god, leave me alone.
Gotta go fast. Gotta go fast. You're actually just Sonic.
Go faster.
Wait a second. Kai, say chili dogs for me.
Chili dogs.
I knew it. I've never seen you and Sonic in the same place at the same time.
Why do you think I have a crush on Knuckles?
I-
Rivalry.
It's
Him and I
all
have
clear
that.
now.
Did you know that because Knuckles is an Echidna, his like dick has 4 heads on it?
Yeah,
That's
and they're like,
odd.
they look like fucking starfishes.
Yeah, they're
I know.
barbed.
4 dicks is probably part of the selling point, honestly. If you're into it.
Probably.
I mean,
They all work independently, so like while one is on cooldown, you just get the other one.
bro, cooldown is a circumcised problem, I think.
Cooldown? What cooldown?
Cooldown.
There's a refractory period no matter what. It's just how long the refractory
What do you mean?
period is.
Oh,
Okay,
I'm-
refractory period is like when you come, you have to wait
Yeah.
X amount of time to come again. As a guy, you can't just come like back to back. That's what the refractory
Can't
period
relate.
is. Yeah, obviously.
Can't relate.
Get the wonderful experience of multiple orgasms.
Oh, it's
It's not
yeah.
always about the.
Let me tell you that, you're missing out, my guy.
Sometimes it's about the.
I don't have to be told.
yo,
You get told
Jaws.
all the fucking time.
Say
What's
hi to
up?
Techno. You stumbled in at just the right time. We were just having a discussion about multiple male orgasms immediately after talking about fucking physics for like half an hour.
Hey, only because Knuckles got brought up, and I don't know why I brought up the whole
4 dick
Echidna
thing.
having multiple dickheads thing.
Dickheads.
What? It's true.
No, it's just the word dickheads makes me giggle because it's like an insult.
Kai did show me of her clip saying "come on her face." We were just talking about that.
Come in my face. Yeah, exactly. I was gonna bring it up too.
Too hot for Twitch.tv. Come in my face, she said in a French accent.
Alright, now I have to go look this clip up.
Oh,
probably
it's-
fucking
it's-
hilarious.
It's solid gold.
I think I
Alright,
still have it in my copy paste. Let me check. I do. There we go. Yeah, because I showed it to Techno earlier, so it's still in my copy paste. It's good.
The accent that got me. Sploosh. Dude, Pam from Archer is my spirit animal.
You definitely did say "come in my face," guy.
No, I did not. Okay, maybe I did.
Okay, that was. Ah, someone who says, "Are we still doing phrasing?" An Archer fan. Hello.
Praising.
Yes. People
Seriously,
say
guys, we really need to get
phrases.
phrasing back in the mix. Are we
It's
just
already in
not
the mix.
doing phrasing anymore?
They did a really
people
good job
are.
of extending the shelf life of that joke without
Yes.
just reusing the joke. I loved that.
Yeah.
Like
My
5 times.
friend have a phrasing command on their Twitch. It's used.
May
quite
as well
often.
just start an ant farm.
Oh.
Oh my god. I actually watched like seasons 1 through probably 6 or 7 of that relatively recently. They have like 12 of them now or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I lost track at some point. I think I watched like the first 5 seasons or but whatever it was before the first spin-off that they did. I don't think that I've seen any of the spin-off stuff. Like, wasn't there like a vaporwave season or some shit where they were like ripping off what was that show? Malibu 5-0 or whatever.
Yes, it's happening.
Some of the middle was kind of crappy when it was him in a coma. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it definitely like lulled, like the typical growing pains that you imagine with most TV shows.
Yeah. But I mean, they managed a pretty high level of quality even through their poor episodes.
Honestly, I wish that they had just fucking killed off Pam a long time ago. She became so annoying at a certain point.
I must not have gotten to that point. I think the last memory that I have of Pam, I remember her being like she was eating a shitload of cocaine all the time, and apparently she used to be like a really big fighter. It's been so long since I've watched Archer.
A bunch of cocaine, yeah. That's when May got like kicked out of ISIS and had to try to make money by selling cocaine. And
That's
she
right.
got addicted to it. But I don't know. I was never a fan of Pam.
I
A lot
loved
of people
Pam.
like her.
I loved Pam. And maybe that's just like your hot take. Maybe I would still enjoy her character if you've never liked her, because there's way too many times where she's been my like fucking favorite character in the show. Plus, you know, as a big fella, it's nice to see a show that lets big people fuck around. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, I didn't mind the fact that she was big at all. And in fact, when she was eating all the cocaine and was skinny is when she was most annoying. Because all she did was nom cocaine. That was her fucking line. All like every show, twice a show, and it was just like obnoxious.
I don't know. Everybody that I've ever known that got into cocaine was kind of like that.
Are you
Nom
sure
nom
it's
cocaine.
or it was the freaking work supplement?
Okay, we don't have to go through that route again. I wasn't addicted.
Well,
I was maybe.
Helen and Island, a PI back in the 50s, Miami Vice style cup. Yeah, so I missed out on all of that. I think I stopped watching right before that. Like Roxo. It's Roxo the Clown! I'm Roxo, the rock and roll clown! I do cocaine!
Yes,
The
I remember that.
Oh shit, we're gonna get hookers and ice cream. Dude, Metalocalypse is another one of those shows that I wish that they would have just let them end it when they wanted to end it and fucking like preserve the vision of the show. Because I don't know if it's been ended or not, but I just know they wouldn't let them finish the series for a long time. I was super mystified by
for a little bit, and yeah, it just became redundant and slightly obnoxious after a bit.
Well, I think that they had wanted to end the show for like a season or two, and then they hit some kind of an impasse where they were like, no, we want to end the show, and they weren't being allowed to do it. But I don't think that meant that they churned out a bunch of episodes in response to that. I think that the reaction to that was okay, well, we're just not going to make more episodes then. I think the thing that I'll always just really love about Metalocalypse is how they would actually turn all of the stupid meme songs that they made into real full-length, fully produced tracks, and the tracks ended up being fucking awesome. Did you ever actually like listen to the albums that they released?
No, I didn't. No.
Oh man, it's actually really good. Like you were saying, you only really listen to metal whenever you do listen to music. Death Clock is like unironically good as a band.
Like when I was living like as an undergrad with 3 other guys, like one of them would listen to it quite often. So I've probably heard it. I just never like listened to it myself.
I remember whenever Hurricane Ike destroyed my hometown of Crystal Beach and Galveston, we came back pretty early, so we were exposed to a lot of like just the raw damage that the storm did. And I'll never forget this. I was in charge of the music, was playing music on my Zune. And as we're getting onto the bridge that gets you into Galveston, there's a boat on top of this very tall bridge. And it certainly wasn't fucking there when we left, right?
Right.
And as we see that, I put on Go Into the Water by Deathclog. And it was exactly what I needed for it to not be a very tragic moment. Because instead of being just like purely tragic, there was just this novelty to it, like, we reject our earthly fires. Gone are days of land empires. Fucking, it made it so much more enjoyable of an experience. And you know what? We also got really good at cooking food using hotel room equipment.
I can see that being a thing, yeah.
Back before 5-minute hacks or whatever, fucking 5-minute crafts was a channel. We were doing the fucking, okay, hot dogs in the coffee pot, ramen in the coffee pot, can do a panini with the fucking iron. You can kind of get the base of the coffee pot hot enough. It's like non-stick too. You can kind of get it hot enough to cook an egg.
Interesting.
Double boiler. Ooh, with some candles.
I mean, I don't think we were allowed to have candles. Plus, candles weren't really easy to get because all of the stores had been polluted with water.
Washed out.
Yeah, the devastation down here was fucking wicked. It was like, it looked like a fucking war zone, like an actual war zone. Just buildings torn down and, entire forests gone. Fucking, all kinds of shit.
As a massive amount of energy tearing through a very small location.
Yeah, I mean, it's the power of nature, right? It's just awe-inspiring. Shit that I thought I would never have seen destroyed, torn down. And then, stupidly enough, fucking dumb, flimsy-looking houses that totally survived.
Because they're flexible enough, yeah.
It
Well,
just depends.
There's a combination of a whole bunch of different factors, but yeah.
Yeah, no, these
it's the
particular
same thing.
ones, it was
Right.
just luck. It was just luck.
Okay.
Everybody, all the houses around it were done by the same construction company in the same fashion. But I remember they took this picture of just this one house on the stilts that was standing where everyone else's was destroyed. And they used that on a billboard to advertise for the construction company that made those houses. But what was really funny is I was there physically on that spot where they took that picture, and I could have told you easily all of the houses around it were built by the same people, and only that one was still standing. It's not a great testament to the quality of their
This
construction.
is a God's miracle.
They just got
Jesus
lucky.
Save my house.
Oh man. Not having electricity for 6 months as a gamer. As a gamer.
Oh shit, 6 months?
Yeah, 6 months.
I
That's how
guess
long
it
it took to get
that long
electricity
in the
back.
Infrastructure, yeah. See, the worst thing that I've ever seen is like tornadoes.
I mean, tornadoes
are
can
nowhere
cause an
Oh, yeah, but
awe-inspiring
they're
amount of
nowhere near the
devastation
same
too.
scale.
But fucking hurricanes spawn tornadoes like it's
Yeah.
pixie sticks on Halloween, you know? It just fucking hands them out to everybody. You get a tornado, you get a tornado. Like, you get local tornadoes during the hurricane, on top of the hurricane force winds, on top of the flood inundation. Like, I think it's really funny that people think that the government has the ability to control the weather and shit. Because if you consider just how much energy went into that, oh, bro, if we could
Oh,
harness
yeah.
one hurricane, that would be all the energy humanity needs for like the next decade, for the whole fucking world, basically.
Yes, it's absolutely absurd.
Night, everyone. I'm out for the night. Bye, Kai. Bye, Techno. You have a good night, bro. Enjoy the long weekend.
Bye.
By the way, before you get out, I am going to try and get together Among Us tomorrow night if we have enough people. I think we've got like 5 people interested in playing so far. So we'd only need a couple of people if you want to play. And I'm going to start it at 7 CST, which should be a little closer to whenever you were able to join
Is
last
Among Us
time.
a free game?
Huh?
Is Among Us a free game?
It's free on mobile platforms, and it's $5 on Steam.
That's just too much. I can't afford it.
Maybe in for that, but
Bummer.
it'd still be around 9 p.m. CST. Yeah, I figured if you could play, then it probably wouldn't be until around then. But, you know, I figured I'd mention that I tried to get people together for 6 last time. We didn't get started until 7:30, so maybe if I eyeball 7, people will be more on time. But I mean, we'll see if we even have enough people to play. I might just be playing more Minecraft or get a bug up my butt to play some Elden Ring and help people with bosses or something. Of course, you're an
I was
integral
there
part
on
of this
time
community,
last
Techno.
time. Yeah, Techno is super sweet.
Techno is a fucking... I believe that the proper words are top bloke. Or mad cunt. One of those two
What?
things.
What?
He's either a top bloke or a mad cunt, depending on what part of Australia you're from.
I'm confused.
What's confusing?
Well, I don't know nothing about Australia. I'm Canadian.
Well, both
It's
of those things
literally-
mean that you're a top quality fella.
Yes.
Okay. And the other one?
Yeah, both of them. Both phrases.
Ah.
Okay. Yeah. Wingardium Leviosa.
Leviosa. So you know how the saying's like, oh, if you dig down all the way through, you're gonna end up in China.
Right?
Well,
Please
as
don't
a
do this
kid
to me.
in elementary school, I was like, I don't believe that. So I checked, and where I live, I'm polar opposite of Australia. So I'm like, if I dig all the way down, if I survive, I'm gonna end up in Australia, not in China.
Yeah, the if you survive part is the big if. I mean,
Most
plus you'd have to
places
have
on
tools
the
that are
Earth,
capable of, like, doing impossible feats. It's so much pressure.
yeah. The biggest thing is that in almost every single place on the planet, if you look at the exact opposite side, you end up in water.
Not me.
I think whenever I
Grab the
looked at a
big
globe and tried
globe.
to eyeball it the best that I could, it was somewhere in, like, the West India area. But I mean, that's just with my magic shovel that also shields me from fucking thousands of atmospheres of pressure.
Core.
The core. Bakura.
Alright, little pig. Little piggy, you must die. Pork chop. Pork chop. Delicious. Oh, my fire aspect store's about to die. Very tragic. Very sad. I love Minecraft. I just hate Bedrock.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, if I'm looking at this correctly, the antipode of where you are is definitely in the water, Kai.
Is it?
Yes.
You don't know my city.
There are some parts of Canada, but that are like on land, but it's the very, very northern tip of Canada. And I'm pretty sure Quebec is like much closer towards the border.
The border.
Like,
Well,
isn't
not where I
let me-
live. I live on an island in the center.
on an island in the center? What the
Yeah.
fuck? Hang on, let me pull up a map of Quebec. Hang on.
Well, the lower center, not the center center. The center of where the people are at. I live on an island.
Yeah. So, like, okay, you're nowhere near far enough north. Oh, well, I guess Quebec is fucking massive.
Yeah, Quebec is
Hell
huge.
yeah, baby.
Okay, so I guess technically if you live at the very northern tip of Quebec,
In
maybe
Quebec.
that... Actually, no. Even then... No, all of Quebec definitely has an antipode that's in the water.
Well, on the globe that I had in school, I was on the
Those are not what... So...
on the east side of a freaking Australia.
Okay, that's fine. The problem
I was
is...
in elementary
is that
school.
they make your globe perfectly round. The Earth is not perfectly round.
Well, I mean, not only that, but it's based on what the Mercator projection or whatever. So it's like
Mercator projection
disproportionately-
actually has to do... Well, no. So the Mercator projection has to do with the fact that you're trying to translate three-dimensional space onto a two-dimensional object. The globe circumvents that because you're translating from 3 dimensions to a different, smaller scale of 3
yeah,
dimensions.
but even the globe represents the same magnification and demagnification that comes with that illusion, though.
Trying to
like-
maintain area.
Like
Or are they trying to
Africa on
maintain
every
latitude
globe
and
that I've ever
longitude?
seen is like 50% of the size that it should be.
Huh.
Like Africa is this enormous landmass, and it's very much like it's very much like it's intentionally made to look smaller so that it seems less significant.
So stupid. Well, I know that my country is the second biggest in superficie.
What?
Can I break the brick blocks back up into bricks? No, I cannot.
In superficie, the biggest is Russia, obviously, and then it's Canada because of all the Nunavut
Talking about surface
islands.
area. Yeah, Canada's
superficie.
the second largest in. I don't know what that word is.
Superficie.
Surface area?
It's a word.
I'm sure it is.
Why you putting in two words? It's one word. America, what are you doing to the language?
America, fuck yeah.
No.
Coming in to save the motherfucking day, yeah.
Spell this
My
word
trees
for
won't
me.
grow.
Superficie?
Mhm.
How do you spell said things?
Hold on.
Because I'm trying to Google it, and it's trying to give me a Spanish to English translation.
Superficie.
I
There.
believe that it's a thing. I'm just curious.
I wrote it.
Superficie. All right. Google, do your thing.
Superficie, that's some Nazi shit.
Hey, fuck you. Sure, I'm that again, saying that I'm a Nazi. What's wrong with you? What did I do to you? I thought you were German. You were my friend. Don't call me a Nazi.
What's funny is despite our German heritage, genetically we're like mostly just Scandinavian and Jewish.
I'm like, I think, damn near half German, a third Russian, and everything else kind of like hodgepodged in there. That's all like Germanic based and all that kind of shit. I don't really know all that much though, to be honest.
Would you
I mean,
believe
it's
me
completely-
if I said that I'm over 70% French?
It's like completely
Really?
useless information.
Yeah, I like that. I guess that's why I never really cared. But yeah, this superficie thing, why did I not know this word? It literally just means a surface area.
Because you're fucking
Yeah,
dumb, dude, not educated.
Yeah, obviously.
Roasted potatoes.
I said to probably my
yes.
highest IQ community member.
My IQ is very high, thank you very much.
I haven't taken an IQ test since like 3rd grade, and it was like 130
I've-
something.
I have never given
Yeah,
a
me
shit
too.
about IQs.
Because
That's-
they don't matter.
Yeah, it's one of those things. People think that it means more than it does. And then they like their
I was
identity gets caught up in it.
I was tested for because I had ADD and they wanted to see how fast my brain was working. So back when it was like I think so that means 9th grade, my IQ peaked at like 138.
See, they did that for us in elementary school to put us in the advanced class, and I don't remember exactly what the score was. I was like fucking however old you are in 3rd grade.
See,
But it
I
was like
know
130
I know that I
something,
took
and
a
got put in
test.
the advanced.
I know that I took a test to get into like gifted and talented classes, but I don't know. They gave it to me in between kindergarten and 1st grade, so I don't think it could have been an IQ test.
No, they do them that young, and when they do them that young, they're mainly pattern recognition tests and memory tests, and that's what mostly your IQ is based on. It's because one, our brains are naturally like evolved to recognize patterns, and so the better you are at pattern recognition, the quote unquote higher your IQ is. And then they also want to test. No, there is no such thing as perfect photographic memory. It's called perfect recall or eidetic memory, and that doesn't actually exist in the human race. But they want to
Eidetic.
see
Eidetic memory.
eidetic. Okay, eidetic,
no,
eidetic.
it
I didn't know how to
exists.
pronounce the word, but you knew what I was talking about.
Yeah.
So
Of course. I think
so
that
they do
there's
try to test. Go ahead.
I think that there's like one colloquial story about a Russian journalist or some shit that actually had a truly eidetic memory, but it's full of like very questionable claims that I hesitate to give even a modest sum of credibility.
Yeah.
Well, it's common in certain case of autism.
Even then, it's not. That's not exactly
It's
it.
not truly exactly.
It's
Because like
it's
your
rare, but it
brain,
happens.
your brain has a lot of, let's call them maintenance systems, and in particular with memory, the one primary neurotransmitter that's responsible for like encoding useful information and getting rid of useless information is called acetylcholine. And the one person that I'm talking about, who I'm not sure was actually a real person, the claim associated with him is that his brain basically had this malfunction with how it produced acetylcholine. And so it encoded every memory that he ever had and ended up being like this chaotic over-crossing of memories that was super disorienting. But again, that's a completely, I have no idea whether or not that's a credible story or not. It strikes me as not being credible.
That sounds like relatively in line with what I'm aware of, which is that there is no proven case of eidetic. And so they do tests to see, you can get close. Well, close is a relative term, but they do test in young children to see how good their memory is. And so if you end up taking a quote-unquote IQ test as a child, more often than not, it's a memory test to see how close you are to eidetic memory and pattern recognition tests. Mine, I actually happened to get lucky because there are two types of pattern recognition. There's a word association pattern recognition, and then there's number patterns. Mine, I am very, very good at number patterns. I absolutely suck with all the word shit. So
I'm dyslexic.
when I got mine in 3rd grade, it was like a number 1, and so I scored like really, really high on it just because of pure happenstance. And I don't necessarily care at all because it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
Like,
one of the main reasons that I always thought that the shit like that was pointless is because I believe I was told that I got a perfect score on it. And I was like, yeah, but I make a perfect score on like every test. I don't understand why this is like better than any other test.
I don't think there are like perfect scores on IQ tests. That's strange. Because there isn't like an objective.
That's what I'm saying though. I don't think that it was like a real IQ test. I think it was just some kind of like an aptitude. Like it had a set number of like correct answers that you could select. It wasn't like, it wasn't like scaled with how long it took me to do or whatever, which I did it very quickly, but I don't believe that was factored in.
Huh.
Yeah.
I'm interested. I'm like kind of curious what kind of thing that you would be tested for.
Like, you can get a perfect score, but if you take 3 hours to do it, that's like, yeah, you got everything right, but you took 3 hours, so your IQ must be not that great. So it really depends.
Mine was timed because it was like in between like a period of like the middle of the day.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been IQ tested. That might be fun to do sometime. But that's all that it would be is fun.
Oh yeah, it's just for fun.
Yeah.
But
I've been tested by psychiatrists like every 3 years, all of elementary school up until 9th grade, because ADD, and they wanted to see if I could be kept in the same class.
Interesting.
And yeah, I was smarter than everybody else. I just sucked at reading because I'm dyslexic.
I just thought it was funny in gifted and talented class that we were learning shit that literally everybody in the school should have been learning. It was like they would teach us like a little bit of French and a little bit of astronomy and a little bit of like how to read a map and like computer skills in like 2nd grade and shit like that,
Oh yeah, 100%. And it's because of the whole like, I think it was because of No Child Left Behind, which is really slow everybody down until the last person catches up. And
That's stupid.
it's like,
fuck them, kid.
oh, well, that's just how it works here, unfortunately.
Yeah. Bad policy though.
It's absolutely horrible, yeah. And so I want to say it was like 5th grade, where they had it to where if we were in the accelerated class, you would work at your own pace, and they only had like so much curriculum that they could give you. And so I had done essentially all of the math work on 5th grade up in like middle school, which was 7th grade from where I was before I moved. And they had literally nothing else for me to do for that time. So I just sat there and played fucking Oregon Trail on the old ass Macintosh like computers.
Bro, I feel fairly confident that the little game collection that they would have us play had to have been pirated, because like it had a couple of educational games on it, but then it had, I shit you not, Lemmings. It had a version of
Lemmings is so
fucking Space Junkies.
Is Lemmings the little blue guys that you have to like stop them with bridges and stuff?
Yeah, you have to like give them jobs that help you traverse the puzzle level.
Yeah.
They've got green hair.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
my favorite thing to do was just make them explode. Because they'd like stop, and then they'd grab their little head and start to like shake around, and then they just fucking pop. Oh, that shit was great. It had that. It had like a jank port of some other shit too, but it was like games from very different companies all on the same disc, and like I'm pretty sure that it was just like a pirated disc that somebody at the school copied and put into everybody's computer so that they could get like an hour of quiet whenever we were in the computer room.
It all on a floppy disk. It had to have been back then, the same age.
Yeah.
Oh my god, if those.
That shit was fucking hilarious. And like looking at it through
I
hindsight
miss
is just
my
even
elementary
funnier,
school.
because I guarantee you that that's what it was. It was like somebody at the school was just like, I'm just gonna make a bunch of copies of this disc, and the kids can play on that.
Yep.
I had an idea for a horror game that I thought would be kind of interesting. I have no like specific ideas for scares. I just know. What do you recall a point in time when like being alone on the computer was kind of scary? Like you had
Yes.
just gotten the
Sorta.
internet,
So,
huh?
yeah, a little bit. Like when I was probably like 8 or 9 on the computer for like the first time by myself, and you're just like, should I click this? Should I click this? Am I allowed to do this? Am I allowed to do that? And you're just like unsure of everything that you're doing.
You just like get an instant message and you're like, do I know this person? Who is this? They added me. They must know me, right? Fucking. Oh man.
That's
My
how I met
computer-
My fiance.
My computer just told me that I tried to perform an illegal action. Are there cops on their way? Like there's
mean, that-
definitely something in there that would totally work for that kind of like a horror game experience or something.
But yeah, that scary part of the internet that we experienced when we were like young, when we were teenager, not our generation when we were teenager. That's when I started doing camming, and I met my fiance afterwards. So it turned out not scary after all.
Yeah, I mean,
Nice.
it's it's like a very specific and weird kind of fear, though. It's like it's not.
It's
It's
an
more a fear of
uneasy
the
feeling,
unknown
yeah.
than anything.
Yeah, it's just a distillation of that old I don't know what this is or how it works or what to expect, and it's. I've been told that it can be dangerous, but I don't actually have any familiarity with the type of danger that I'm being told exists with this, and I mean, that went away
Yeah.
very quickly for me because I was basically just told, yeah, don't give anybody your name or where you live, and if you fuck up the computer, just reinstall the operating system.
Nice. See, when I was young, my mom didn't have that kind of like as much education on it. Now she does
Oh.
like IT shit.
Oh, dude,
She's
my
way
mom
versed.
was not the person. My brother was like, yeah, we've got the disk that installs Windows, so if it gets really messed up, you can just install Windows again and it'll fix it.
Yeah, so you had someone in your family who was at least well enough versed in that. I was the oldest sibling, so it would have been, I guess, my job to do that. But
Yeah, figure
I
that part out.
I was like 8, and so we still had like dial-up back then, and so
Nah, dude,
Yeah,
not even
like-
a 56K modem. A 28.6, I think, was the first one that I had.
yeah. And then every time someone tried to make a call, get off the computer.
Mom,
Ah.
are you on the phone? Yeah. All my Flash videos stopped loading. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, my mom
No,
just
you're
said I
not.
don't care. Yeah,
You're not
straight
sorry.
up just said I don't care. So I didn't have
Alright.
like a baseline as to what should I do if I fuck up on the computer. So I did my absolute best to never do anything like that was even considered remotely unsafe.
Yeah, because back then it was extremely expensive. Now $300, you got a laptop, you're good. You know?
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite parts about
Fuck is my fletcher?
growing up with being the computer savvy person in the house was figuring out internet piracy at a young age.
Yeah. Oh,
Like, I
yeah,
remember using Napster and Kazaa and LimeWire, like all that shit.
LimeWire is responsible for so many people's fucking computer failures.
Well, they
my
shouldn't have
God.
downloaded Lincoln_Park_num.exe. Okay, that was their fault.
That was their fault. But I want to say, I don't know exactly who it was. I have a feeling who it was. It was probably my brother, but he absolutely refused at the time. We had LimeWire on the computer because my mom would make CDs. And one day, everything just fucking stopped working. And I guarantee it was because he tried to go fucking burn a CD using LimeWire. He fucked something up by downloading something he shouldn't have and ran it. And then apps, like, everything just, it was a fucking horrible week. Mom threw a fit. Everything was fucked. I didn't get to play any video games. It was sad.
That does sound sad.
But I never, like, gave a shit back then. Like, because again, I didn't really, like, I don't really listen to that much music, or rather, I don't listen to music that often. So I never had, like, CDs burnt for myself or anything like that.
I had always been a big music person and never like had the opportunity to, pursue music that I wanted to listen to. So whenever I found Kazaa Shop and LimeWire and fucking Napster and shit, I just went crazy with it.
That's
I think the first thing that I remember ever downloading was Pink Floyd The Wall.
Really?
Yeah, I remember being like, I really like that one song. I'm gonna download that CD and listen to the whole CD and see if I like it, and it was fucking awesome.
I don't blame you on that one.
Then I think at one point in like the mid to early 2000s, AMVs were really popular.
Yes.
Yes.
Did either of you guys watch AMV Hell?
No. My brother would watch like Naruto AMVs all the time or Bleach AMVs all the time though. That's how he would listen to music basically. He would just get on YouTube, look up a song that had an AMV with it, and he would just listen to them on fucking repeat.
So there is a series called AMV Hell where it's like a bunch of contributors submit videos that they made and they get cut up into like this really like funny and well put together AMV montage, right?
Yeah.
The third one was the longest one at the time that I found these, and it was an hour and a half long.
Oh.
They called it
Damn.
AMV Hell 3, the motion picture. And like 90% of my music taste in high school probably started with that AMV specifically. And it's still up. They did a bunch after that too, but I didn't really watch any of them, I don't think. But
So if I
AMV Hell
just go to
3,
YouTube
I
and
went
type
through.
in AMVL3,
Yeah,
motion picture. Okay.
AMV Hell 3 should be enough to pull it up. You'll find it. It's like an hour long, hour and a half long. And what I
You
did
know
was
what
I went through the
also
credits of
watched
that. I went through the credits of that and
Mhm.
downloaded every fucking song in the entire AMV.
Sure. But
So
something else
I
that I
s-
watched that wasn't AMV was iPod became really big, so they're like, oh, I'm gonna take this character, put in the iPod style, and match a song to it. I would watch that for days.
Oh,
And then I
whenever they
discovered
had like
Avenue
the
Q.
silhouette ad campaign thing.
Yes,
Yeah, I
exactly
remember when
that.
that was popular to do.
It was fun, simple. That's how I discovered Avenue Q, and now I still listen to Avenue Q because it's a gem.
If you were gay,
I'm
that'd
not
That
be
sure
would
it's
be
still
okay.
active anymore. I see a bunch of
I'm
like
goes
parts of it, but I don't see the whole thing. The longest thing I see is AMV Hell Greatest Sins. It's an hour and like 19 minutes long.
Hold on. Let me see. AMV Hell 3, the motion picture.
I am looking.
Here. Archive.org has it right here. I'm posting it in videos and images.
Googled it. So I guess I went to YouTube. That was probably my mistake. All right. Where did you put it?
You
Videos and images.
under my video of pigeons.
Yes, underneath the video of you feeding pigeons fucking spicy Doritos.
They're not spicy. They're the ones that are not spicy.
Interesting. Did you know? Oh, speaking of just feeding Doritos to things, squirrels do not like cheese dip. They will eat a Dorito, but when they get to the Dorito covered in cheese dip, they wouldn't eat it. I flipped it around and it grabbed onto the cheese dip with its like little hands, nibbled on the Dorito, and when it got to the cheese, it like fucking spiked it on the tree.
What the fuck?
Yeah. I had no idea
The
that
dog
that
ate the cheese dip.
well, I just wanted to know. It's like, I'll try to feed the squirrel.
What
I
a
don't know why
monster.
it would cheese dip. And I like cheese dip. Why wouldn't the squirrel like cheese dip? I don't see the problem.
It didn't appreciate that you gave it low quality cheese dip. You gave it like it expected a real queso, and you gave it some of that fucking microwave this glass jar queso.
The cheese whiz.
No. It's just some Velveeta with some Rotel.
Oh, that's pog, dude. I can understand why a squirrel wouldn't fuck with that, though, to be honest with you. Because, like, yeah, it's good to us, but I feel like to them, it would just taste even more like chemicals than it does to us.
But then why would they eat the chip itself?
This chip, dude.
Because
This fucking chip.
fair enough.
Have you ever seen a fucking chip in your life?
No.
It's crunchy.
True.
Nom nom nom. I don't even know if they can process salt, so I hesitate to be like, it's probably just the salt, but it could also just be the fact that it's a salty treat. And then whenever it gets to the queso, it's like, what is this fucking mold that this is covered in?
What the fuck is this? And it was just the funniest thing because, I tried to feed it a couple times and it just wouldn't take it. But when you flip it around, just watching his hands get covered in the cheese dip and then him eating the dry part, getting to the cheese, freaking the fuck out and straight up spiking it. One of the best things that I've ever seen in my life that, I've had an animal do because of my direct actions. It was hilarious.
you find out that this is what people are talking about whenever they say serial killers like to torture animals. So he was feeding the squirrel Doritos with cheese dip on it, eh? And he doesn't know that cheese dip is like poison to squirrels?
Yes, you're right. I just admitted to you that I have psychopathy issues, and I'm gonna need you to keep that on the down.
It's okay, dude. It's only me, you, Kai, and up to 5 other people. I've never heard of a group of up to 8 people not being able to keep a secret.
What secret?
Oh, that Jaws
There
is
you
a
go.
psychopath.
Well, I am
Oh,
too, but
oh.
I'm diagnosed. Huh?
That's all. That's first step's admitting it. Good job. You gotten one step farther than I have.
Yeah, he's still trying to act like he's
I've
joking.
been admitting it since I got diagnosed. It's cool, man. I've known for years. Or over a decade, actually. Fascinating.
Ever since I killed that neighbor boy with a claw hammer, I've just known.
It was with an axe.
Bruh,
Thank you very
okay.
much.
So I've been watching a lot of 2 different things. I've been watching 3. Been watching a lot of podcast stuff, but like not whole podcasts, just like 5 to 15 minute clips from podcasts where the conversation's a little more focused on something that I'm interested in hearing about. Been watching a shitload of like historical cooking stuff. And I've been watching a shitload of serial killer stuff. I watched one yesterday about this fucking kid who had like a couple of neighborhood kids over while his parents weren't there, and he wasn't supposed to have kids home, and his like stepfather his father was like abusive as shit, and he was scared about what would happen. So he like tells them to go home, and one of the kids is like a little bit younger and gets like, I don't know, scared or some shit whenever she gets told to leave super immediately, and so she starts crying and she's not leaving, and this guy fucking bludgeons her to what he thinks is to death with a baseball bat to get her to stop crying and like hide her before she gets home, or before his family gets home. And his parents get home. He has put this little girl underneath his waterbed and like notices that she's still moving and making noise. So she's still alive.
Oh my god.
And he goes and gets a knife and he fucking finishes the job and then leaves her underneath his fucking waterbed for like 2 weeks while he participates in like the search for her body or whatever, and acts like nothing's wrong. The house gets searched by police with police dogs that detect corpses 3 times, as does every other house in the neighborhood. Searched multiple times for this girl. And the only reason that it was ever found is because the mom was fucking cleaning when the kid was gone, and she noticed that the mattress had sprung a leak. And so she like goes to lift up the waterbed, and this little girl's like decaying body, the smell starts to waft out. And it was like this horrifying thing. And this kid literally did all this because he was scared of what his fucking dad would do if he found out he had friends over while they were gone. But he had no like feelings of remorse about what he did, and it was nuts. It's hard to believe. He was like 12 or some shit.
Fear of punishment is real. I
Yeah, it's
understand it.
insane. Completely insane.
He's my idol. Just kidding.
What a
I've
role
always,
model.
like, been of the opinion that like any kind of horror thing that revolves around the children being like the crazy or the killers or whatever are like the most terrifying thing, because children are absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
They just have.
Hello,
'Cause
sorry
they
to
don't
interrupt
have
the
the
stream,
same
but would you be
filter.
interested in
You know
custom
that whatever
designs for
they're
your
saying-
channel? Give me 1 sec here, Jaws. So Wizard S. Julia, welcome in. That's gonna depend. If you're doing lead generation for someone, even just lead generation for yourself, and that's your only goal, not really interested. If you want to like stick around and be a part of the community and get to know me, and I get to know you, and I get to see your art and stuff, I would totally consider commissioning you. But I mean, if you look down below, you can see all the artist credits of all the different artists that I have, you know, contributing assets to my stream. If all you're doing is looking for leads, then, you know, I'm not interested. But you know, I appreciate asking, I guess. It's very, to me, very disingenuous to just be looking to do lead generation in people's Twitch chats. You know what I mean? It's not the best place for that. By all means, continue, Jaws.
I was just saying the children are terrifying because they don't have a filter, so anything that they say, you know, is like what they're actually thinking.
Yeah, I can't believe how...
Not entirely true.
No, I mean, children can be... I think that the real reason that children doing stuff like that is so horrifying is because we all kind of assume that, you know, kids are coming from a more lighthearted,
Innocence.
pure place or whatever. And whenever you find that they've not, you know, and like that only applies so far, right? Like everybody knows that your kid's gonna try to sneak a candy bar, or your kid's gonna, you know, try to tell a lie to get out of trouble or whatever. But the general assumption is that even though they do those things, they're still probably good because they're just these little unmolded creatures. But then I think that what's so disturbing about it is it's a peek into how dark humans really are, like fundamentally. There's just this enormous capacity for like evil and wrongdoing and just sort of self-preservation at the cost of everyone around you and shit. And the notion that that could exist in what is otherwise a sort of pre-identity form of humanity, right? A kid. It bothers us, I think, because I don't think we like to confront the sort of primal nature of what humanity is.
Well, so I think that the level of fear that you would experience from a child is probably also directly correlated with how old they are. If you have like a 4-year-old girl say something extremely fucking like creepy, to me that is like the top level of this shit just got fucked up.
I'm burning the whole house down.
Yes. Because it's like, how would a 4-year-old come up with something like, it's not that the 4-year-old can't lie, don't get me wrong, a 4-year-old can definitely lie, but
Yes.
to lie to such an extent where they're making up some absurd tale, like, I don't know, say, okay, so I don't know, if I try to think of an example, it would be like, say a 4-year-old says I saw something in the window, right? Okay, that means that you could
Probably
very
saw that.
easily. Well, I was thinking like if she says I saw a person, you know, then you could easily have like an actual stalker outside your house, right? Because there's no reason why the 4-year-old would make something like that up,
Right.
in my opinion.
Oh,
And then if you were to go like a step further and the child says, well, I saw a monster. Okay, well, monster is a very generic term, so you can start to elaborate. Did they just see an animal that they didn't recognize? And you can like start to go down a path of what exactly you see. But then you get like horror films where obviously everything actually exists, and you have like children say, oh, I saw a demon chop this person's head off. If you get a 4-year-old telling you that they saw someone get their head chopped off, they're not making that up, probably, right? That shit to me is the top level of, like, that is some fucked up, I'm getting out of here, we're not continuing down this road anymore, turn around, get the fuck out.
So I'll kind of glaze over the horror movie side of it, because yeah, obviously in that context it's done on purpose to make it be creepier. But what I will say is, okay, everybody, I know a lot of people that like believe in ghosts and shit, right?
Yes.
And
believe in
I
ghosts.
have had experiences in my life that a lot of other people would say were like ghostly encounters, right? Like stuff that isn't explainable with any kind of rationale that makes any sort of sense on planet Earth. But the human brain is this really imperfect organ that does a lot of real-time data processing and doesn't necessarily care about accuracy all the time. And so for me, you know, I have no trouble whatsoever rationalizing every single one of those unexplainable things as a misfire in my brain that made me perceive a thing that wasn't actually there or happening. And the stuff that other people get like freaked out about with regard to that, I have similar sort of a similar understanding of what they probably went through as well. You know, nobody walks away with a photograph, nobody walks away with like hard evidence. What I would be what I would need to be convinced that that thing actually happened, and that's with zero doubt that the person is telling the truth. Like
so that's the biggest thing is everyone thinks that they saw it, and I'm not telling you didn't see it, but what you saw is not what you think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The
But
human
you
brain
have
is this
evidence.
perception engine.
Goes back to the pattern recognition thing. You can see the most vague lines, and your brain will turn it into a face. Which is
Absolutely.
why you get fucking pictures of everything on the internet that's like, oh, there's a face in the tree, or there's a face on my toast. It's not. It's your brain making you think that there's something there that there's actually not. And this is something that I've had to argue with a lot of my friends about. Every single field, and by field I mean like a physical manifestation of energy that you can interact with, has already been found. There is no place for ghosts to exist. And that just bothers people. And I don't know why that would bother you. But it just, people do not like the fact that everything that exists up into a certain time precision has already been found.
Then you get into quantum and it's like everything is kind of spooky, but in a completely different way.
Yeah.
Like none of this should work, but somehow it all does. What the fuck is this?
We know why it works, but we don't know how things experience decoherence. That's about it. There's nothing wrong with not understanding. Like, it's at such a small scale, and it's so far removed from our everyday experiences.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not the kind of thing you experience in what do they call it? Classical object state or whatever?
Macroscopic physics.
Macroscopic objects, yeah.
Yeah.
We are macroscopic objects, so the true spookiness of the universe is kind of lost on us.
There's nothing wrong with things being in a superposition. It just bothers people because they don't understand where it goes from being in a superposition of states to being definitely here or there, and that there is now a cause and effect action.
So this is actually a good segue into one of my favorite types of horror, which is cosmic horror. Just the notion that there are things that are so far beyond our understanding that even a brief glimpse into them would completely challenge our sanity.
Okay,
Like-
give me an example.
Do what?
Like, can you give me an example?
Yeah, so when I say Cthulhu, what do you think of?
I mean,
A
probably
beautiful
the
creature is
artistic
my god.
Well, yeah, probably the artistic interpretation where he's like some giant like squid thing that's a either
Right.
a deity or a demonic presence or whatever from a different yeah.
So Cthulhu is depicted that way because it's like a conglomeration of things that I think make a lot of normal people feel uncomfortable when they look at them, especially together.
What? No, it's beautiful.
Well, yeah, but normal people, in air quotes here.
Ew.
But that's not... Cthulhu doesn't have a physical form. Cthulhu is not a creature. Like, it is an old god, but
Yeah, see, I'm
our
not-
need to
it's-
turn it into
it's all-
something that can be understood and viewed and conceptualized is so far removed from the purpose of...
So then would this be similar to our visualization of the quote unquote like death god or like the Grim Reaper?
I think that all sort of plays into old like historical takes on it.
Folklore.
I don't think that there's anything about our depictions of the Grim Reaper that sort of taps into our fear of the unknown. But cosmic horror is pretty much entirely dependent upon a certain understanding of the universe. That is to say, things that are beyond our comprehension. So I find it really, really funny and really, really amusing that there are so many artist depictions of Cthulhu where he's like this big tentacled monster thing. It just says a lot about
Davy Jones.
how far people read into what they don't understand. Cthulhu is not this like creature with a body that you can look at. The concept of Cthulhu,
No,
the closest
Cthulhu
thing that
is
I
an
can...
energy.
He's what?
Is closer to like a very strong energy.
Yeah,
I don't
he's
see
like
it as
a...
corporeal.
He's like a necessary
Cthulhu
component.
from-
He's like a necessary component of the universe that represents madness and things just being beyond human comprehension. So the closest thing that I can give to like a description of Cthulhu as a character concept is that if you were an ant just running about doing your ant things on planet Earth, and I picked you up as a human being, and I performed some magic on you that turned you into a human for a brief moment, for a minute. And in that brief moment, you were suddenly gifted with a bunch of human memories, and you started to understand like history and the scale at which we dominate the world and the scope of the problems that we try to deal with and how our society looks. And then you immediately, in that same instant, are flung back into being an ant. How do you cope with living in the world that you are comfortable with and familiar with whenever you know that your existence matters so infinitesimally that you can't even properly, like, conceptualize your place in the universe anymore? That's what Cthulhu is. A glimpse at him drives you fucking insane because you start to realize that the nature of being is irrelevant. Like your existence is irrelevant in the scope of these larger, more grandiose processes that don't give a fuck about you or any of your experiences. Your entire the entire history of your species has been completely irrelevant to the goings on of the universe.
Like, the universe in and of itself is that, though. Like, the universe does not give a shit about Earth or you or the human species or anything.
Thus, cosmic horror. That's where it derives the name.
I don't understand why that would be horror. I mean, okay, so from my perspective, because I find it all extremely fascinating, which is why I like physics so much. I would never derive horror from something like that. But I can see how someone else would, I guess. Like,
it's not necessarily that it's like horrifying because you would want to understand it. It's something that you would try to understand for sure. But your attempt to understand it would cause you to lose your mind. It's like, I don't know. Haven't you ever, like, realized some greater truth and for a brief moment you felt like your world was ending?
Nope.
No?
No.
Mm-mm.
Like,
I know too much.
I've known since I was, like, very young that I don't matter as a human being in the long, like, term. And that, I guess I would say when I realized that I was going to die and there was nothing that I could do about it, and that no one would ever care at a certain point. Like, what, maybe 3 generations later, 4 generations later, no one is even gonna know who I am. I probably had that realization when I was like, I don't know, I was pretty fucking young.
Maybe I'm doing a poor job of explaining it. It's not something that you could overcome as a product of your character. It's not something that it's not something that an experience that you've had in your life could prepare you for. Like, the nature of cosmic horror is to be so jarring with the way that it fucks with your concept of everything that it literally drives you insane.
That fuck with my concept that hard would be like, I don't know, if God shows up in front of me and is like, haha, everything that you think is wrong. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
fuck.
that would completely fuck with your entire understanding of how everything operates, right?
Yeah.
Your entire worldview would be called into question, but then simply trying to understand this thing that showed up, how God could possibly exist, drives you up the wall. You literally have no way of processing him.
It also depends on how you see life, because if your point of view on life is one-dimensional, then yeah, you're gonna get phased by those kind of things. But if you see the world as infinite possibilities and whatnot, you're not phased by much. I'm not phased by anything. God could pop up in my room and be like, yo, your feet stinks. I wouldn't give a shit. It's not gonna change anything.
Okay. So for me, it would bother me because I am so starkly against the concept that a deity is necessary for the universe to exist.
Right.
Well,
like the universe is this necessary thing unto itself. So something like that just showing up all of a sudden, it doesn't matter if you're flexible in your understanding and your approach. Whenever it goes in the face of everything that you've ever known, that to me is the coolest kind of horror, where it's it's basically impossible for them to put into words the scope and the scale of the atrocity that they're sort of realizing. And it's something that you're powerless to rebel against, and you have no counterpoint that gives you comfort. No, you're not even able to be coherent after you've processed it. You basically immediately just lose all type of higher function.
Yeah, you're just catatonic at that.
You just fucking crumble.
Not permanently. Yeah.
Sounds like
I
a
could
bunch
imagine
of
something like
weak-minded
that
folks.
It just means that you don't have a strong enough conviction in anything that your worldview could be shattered like that. Which you can see it as a good thing, I guess. I wouldn't necessarily.
My view of the world is not something people believe in, so.
Is that even...
Stop shooting me! It's daytime. Stop shooting me! No!
Shit burning in the daytime?
Yeah, that's why I'm confused. Oh my god, I have one heart. Eat. Okay, what was that?
Sword's about to break, bro.
Yeah, it broke on that last hit.
That it did. Okay. Yeah, I guess I'm a couple seconds behind. That makes sense, though. There's probably not only is there base delay from data transmission, there's probably some built-in delay Twitch as well.
Oh, I mean, especially if you're on mobile or something.
Bitch.
I think the delay on mobile is actually fucking ridiculous. It's like a solid 30-second delay.
Wait, really?
They fixed it a little bit. Like, it's not as bad as it used to, but it's still hot garbage.
Yeah, it's not. I wouldn't recommend anybody watch on mobile, but here's the thing. Whenever I first started streaming on Twitch, like years ago, you actually had to be a certain popularity to even appear on mobile. So the fact that their infrastructure can actually get everybody on mobile now, you can watch anybody you want to on mobile. I'm willing to accept that a 30-second delay isn't a bad trade-off for that.
Well, lately I've been getting closer to like a 10-second delay, 8-second delay, which is slow on computer but fast on mobile. So
Yeah, that's not too
progress, I
bad.
guess.
You could arguably carry
so-
on conversations close to real time with an 8-second delay.
Close enough.
Is Cthulhu from Lovecraft? That's
Yeah,
what this
he's a
says on Wiki.
Lovecraftian horror concept.
Cthulhu turns me on.
It's about it, so I did a quick Google because I wasn't sure where it was from.
Yeah, Cthulhu is
don't
like
you mean
H.P. Lovecraft's most popular horror character.
Horror? He's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Or eroticism if you're Kai.
Just his concept and energy is just like, oh yeah, fuck me up, daddy.
Basically
I don't believe
big
in
dick
God, but
energy,
if
right?
You are God, I believe in you.
I think one of my favorite lines in the entirety of Metalocalypse has to be, I don't believe in religions. Well, I mean, you can, like, not believe in God, but that doesn't mean religion is real. Or that doesn't mean religion is fake. Oh, then proves to me that religions is real. Well, there's a Bible over there. Oh,
Yeah.
I guess I go home and rethinks my life.
Yeah. Okay, the one that did it for me though, and I don't know why this killed me so hard, but it is, we are mostly water, and Bleach is mostly water, so therefore, we are Bleach. And
I guess.
that line just absolutely just killed me.
Oh my god,
I think
that is a
that's it.
really good one.
I'm pretty sure that's Metalocalypse, right?
I think so. Because they're like trying to convince someone to drink bleach, I believe.
Yeah.
But the thing is, because we produce ammonia, I don't think we can be bleach, because otherwise we'd explode.
Yeah, if we could also be bleach while containing ammonia, then that probably wouldn't go over well. We'd be walking nerve gas. I don't know about that. I think that the ammonia might have to be different than how it exists in our body. I think that like whenever our urine rots for a certain amount of time, then the ammonia turns into that kind of ammonia. But I think up until a certain point, it's not that bad. Like if you were to pee, and nobody try this at home, please, but if you were to piss into like a fucking container of bleach, it wouldn't just immediately turn into mustard gas.
It has happened to people that they faint right away.
Really?
Yeah.
Hold
That's why they're
on.
like, when you clean your bathroom, don't use bleach in the bowl because you can faint. I'm like, what the fuck you talking on about?
Well, yeah, if it's on your toilet bowl, then the ammonia has time to change into the right form. Let me look this up. Death
Okay, so
by
I was
pissing into
slightly
bleach.
off. It was
I don't think.
Bleach is healthy. It's mostly water, and we're mostly water, so therefore we are Bleach. But yeah, that line
Bleaching.
killed me from Metalocalypse.
I don't think it's gonna kill you if you piss. If you wash your bowl with bleach and then you go pee, it's not gonna kill you, but it's enough. It's powerful enough to make you faint. Anakin Skywalker. Hello. That's a lot of emotes.
Yo, what's going on? How are you doing, Anakin? Oh, you lurking? Word. Well, I appreciate your lurk, Anakin. I hope you're having a great long weekend. Give me 1 second. I'm reading about whether or not you can piss into bleach.
No, you're gonna faint, dumbass. It depends also with your diet. Like if you don't eat, you only drink
Okay.
water, then maybe not.
Healthy human urine should not contain ammonia, although it contains a chemical called urea, which can transform into ammonia after a while. Ammonia is detectable by the average nose at a fairly low threshold. I haven't done the math to be sure, but I'm willing to bet that the amount of ammonia contained in healthy human urine would not produce enough chlorine gas to cross the toxicity threshold, even if that person peed into a toilet filled with pure bleach. And that's somebody that's been a science teacher for 21 years. I knew that it was something to do with urea has to decay into ammonia before it will have that what is it called? That reaction. But we used to collect human urine as part of the feudal system because it was useful for making a few things. I think that you had to have putrefied human urine to do tanning, for one. So like like if you tanned hides, if your job was to finish leather products, then you had to
human
have
skin,
putrefied human piss because that was like their only source of ammonia at the time. And then I think, if I'm not mistaken, we also stockpiled it for some other reason. Was it to mix with saltpeter to make gunpowder? No, I don't know what it was. There was some other particular use for human urine in history that didn't have to do with
I
tanning.
remember that. There was gunpowder, maybe dyeing things.
I'm sure that
And
there probably was a purpose that had to do with dyeing. Yeah.
Cryptid Cafe!
Yo, Cryptid! I'm doing good. We're doing chemistry.
Wasn't it also to repel coyotes?
We're having
also used to repel like coyotes or something? The fuck am
I
I
could not
faggots?
tell you that. I just know that historically, the ones that I remember for sure is gunpowder and dyeing. Tanning of leather completely makes sense. I don't know off the top of my head, but if you do remember that, I would believe it. There's probably other things.
You said the repairing of what?
I didn't say repairing of anything. I said gunpowder production.
No, I meant Kai. The last thing that she said.
Sorry.
Repelling coyotes.
Repelling coyotes. I don't know about that.
That's what I've been told in my neck of the woods. If you piss around your house, the coyotes won't come.
Yeah, that doesn't sound right to me.
I don't think that's how that works.
I think, honestly, if you piss around your house and a coyote comes near it, it's probably going to recognize that you have prey piss. It's like, I don't smell enough protein in that rancid ammonia. I'm going to hunt this fucking thing. But no, we were just having a conversation about whether or not you can piss into bleach. as normal sane people have.
Because it wouldn't be enough, would it?
Depends how
what wouldn't be enough?
You are.
Depends on how unhealthy you are. What?
No, even if you had really unhealthy urine, it still wouldn't contain enough ammonia to trigger a reaction that creates chlorine gas. Who's trying?
Talk to my doctor about that.
I mean, sure, but I've known. Listen, okay, if there's one thing that working in the field that I work has taught me over the years, it's that some doctors are fucking stupid.
Oh, I literally do not go to doctors anymore because I have two friends that are medical doctors and they have told me horror stories. If I have anything immediately wrong with me, I will go to an emergency room to get it taken care of, but as for like general questions on my own health and physiology, I just ask them.
I see doctors all the time, so sometimes I trust them, sometimes I don't.
I mean, I took my wife
I
to a
listened,
doctor
but I don't
today,
obey.
but I told her beforehand, this doctor is just going to tell you that you need to, like, rinse your throat after you eat.
Which, it's true. Should.
And
Kills bacteria.
I paid $208 out of pocket, and that was what she said.
Oof.
That sounds about right. Welcome to America.
America. Mhm. Okay. Tripwires. Oh, that's what I wanted to check. Tripwires.
Oh, and the motherfucking
there's-
pharmacy. I waited 2 hours before I went to the pharmacy to give them plenty of time to process the prescription that she was given, because we went ahead and asked if there was anything that, you know, she could prescribe that would help. And she did, but the fucking pharmacy's system was down today. I'm just like, what kind of shitty IT people do you have that it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon and they haven't resolved this issue for you already? Do you want to pay me to fix this? I'll fix it for you.
Iron. I
Like,
don't want to use iron.
Gotta be fucking incompetent. Just fucking restart the PBX server. You're good. Dear Lord, for one session? Yeah, not even for a consultation, Cryptid. Just to sit down with the doctor, have them look at the problem, and get their opinion on it. That's not for any procedures. That's not for any, you know, additional work. That's literally just to sit in the room and talk to them for about 10 minutes. And honestly, the fact that we
Maybe
got
they're
her
gonna
time for...
check, but rarely.
What?
Maybe they're gonna check, but not often.
I mean, she checked her
Visually
throat. She
check.
looked at her throat. That was fine. She actually did it, but it's rare that you get 10 minutes of their time uninterrupted like that. I've literally been in situations where I've waited an hour and a half to see the doctor and gotten less than 5 minutes of care from that doctor.
Yeah. I mean, when I lost the tip
Normally
of my
they-
finger, I was sitting there in the emergency room with nurses the vast majority of the time. Doctor comes in, does whatever the fuck the doctor does, and then leaves, and then you're just taken care of by nurses the rest of the time.
Yeah, the nurses literally do everything, and they're not allowed to do the one thing that you came in for, basically.
Yep.
So it mostly, like, the biggest inconvenience that comes along with being an American citizen and trying to get healthcare is definitely the price tag, but they also just outright give you piss poor care. Like, you don't get time. A lot of people don't answer fucking questions that you ask them. And honestly, a lot of doctors just treat their patients like they're fucking stupid, which, to be fair, a lot of their patients are fucking stupid, but you don't have to treat them like that.
I get tossed around like a hot potato because my medical file is too big.
You've got your own drawer.
Yeah, pretty much. I actually have 3 documents to my name.
Jesus.
Ew,
Just
a
because-
child. Fuck
Just
off.
because of data issues, or
Well, one of them is just general health. One of them is for my specific condition. And third one is for my mental health.
okay. I mean, it makes sense to have those divided up then, because one of those is just
They're-
general, one of
they're-
those you
they're
need your
getting
specialist
thick.
for, and then one of those is a completely different field.
They're
really-
getting pretty thick.
I really resent how little money we invest in mental health in this country. Like, nobody that I work with gets paid a market rate for what they do. Actually kind of nuts.
Yeah, it's just a suck it up and deal with it kind of mentality, and it's really not healthy.
No, it's not. I
Take the
definitely
health
resent
insurance
it.
and hope it passes.
At the lab, we literally have like so many different types of like stress elimination things, so we can. First of all, you basically get an unlimited number of breaks. If you feel stressed, you can literally just go take a walk, and no one is going to say shit to you about it.
That's sort of how my role is as well, but a little bit less so, just because people don't really respect you or understand the work that you put into. I mean, it's programming, so most people don't really understand what I do, and so there's always this sort of assumption that if I'm not delivering completed products, then I must be playing with my dick all day or something. And I find that really insulting, and it honestly, whenever it happens, it dramatically de-invests me from my work.
Yeah.
But you know, we do get a certain
also
level of respect at least, and we can like take breaks when we need to, and we don't really get micromanaged too much. But that comes at the cost of my CIO's sanity, because he constantly has to go to bat for us and shit, and make people understand what we do and how we do it.
Yeah. There's like rooms that you can like, the fuck am I trying to say? You can reserve a room, and then you can literally just go take a fucking nap, so no one can check. Like, they will give you a room. They're all over the campus. You can just reserve it for like 45 minutes or an hour. There's like rooms for fucking maternity, where the women who want to bring their children in can go have like private moments with their children to feed them or whatever. You can go do yoga in the room. Like I said, literally people take naps in the room. I've never used the room. I don't even know how to reserve the room because I just got there, but it seems interesting enough that it's even an option.
No, that's very what's the word? That's very pro fuck, what am I trying to say?
Proficient?
No, it's very that's a very good technique for preventing burnout and making employees feel respected and shit, though. Like, if I were you, I would be using that nap room as much as possible, especially because I have sleep problems. I'd just be like, I feel like every day around noon or maybe 1 o'clock, I just get so fucking tired. And like, if I don't consume caffeine, then it's too hard to focus. And so I've taken lunch breaks where I just like went to sleep on the office floor whenever I was in the office. And if I desperately need a quick bit of shut eye, I'll take a lunch break or whatever, and I'll take a 45-minute hour nap, whatever. But it's very clearly that is your lunch break. You get one break like that. That kind of thing would not fly in the sort of corporate office type system that we use, which I resent that completely. It would be so easy to make it one of the best jobs ever, but people are so fixated on the notion that you're not working if you're not suffering, basically.
I hate that. Gross.
It's sort of like an extension of not letting your cashier sit down.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me at all, to be honest. But it is what it is.
What were you trying to say, Kai? Before we continue.
So some of my friends are like, "Oh, well, if you have no customer, you're basically doing nothing all day." It's like, what the fuck you mean doing nothing? Who cleans? Who fixes the shelves? Who do the inventory? Like, no, I do everything.
Motherfucker.
What the fuck you mean?
Not even that. That's like you going above and beyond as far as I'm concerned. When it comes down to it, especially in retail, they're paying for you to be there whenever somebody does happen to show up. Whether or not someone shows up is not your fucking problem. They can take that to marketing. They can do
marketing.
They can do a local campaign to try and drum up interest in the shop or whatever. You're being paid to fucking be there. And being there is basically the full extent of the job description and the vast majority of retail jobs. You wouldn't fucking choose to be there on your own time. Although maybe it's different for you because it's a fabric store and you make clothes. So
I do if it's cleaning. Like, if you tell me your job is to clean, oh, I will come 6 days a week for multiple hours. I will fucking love that. But the fact that I have to interact with people is what kills me. It's disgusting. I hate people.
it's disgusting.
It's
It is beneath me.
It's disgusting.
I have to look at you with your disgusting human face and features.
Like, literally, for this entire week, I close an hour early just so that I can clean in peace. It's the best.
That's the strategy.
I lock the door, nobody can come in.
I thought that it's already past the time that they would have closed the place down. Have they changed their mind about whether or not they want to keep it open?
No, it's the April was paid. What April? Yeah, April was paid. So it's either 2 weeks left or a month and a half left.
Do you think there's a possibility that they might keep it open month to month if it keeps being profitable or something, or nah?
It's not highly profitable. No, I do everything except pay the bills, and I know how much money we make exactly.
So you don't think it's very likely that they'll keep it open?
Like, as of right now, we have enough to keep me paid and go for another month, maybe a month and a half. But unless business picks back up, we're not going to be able to stand for much longer.
But that's good though. At least they're keeping it open as the business has enough money to keep you paid. A little bit longer than you thought you had, I feel.
Yeah, I'm just stealing shit, honestly. Like, I'm over it. If I had a car, I would steal much more shit, but I don't have a car. Who's gonna stop me? The business is closing. All this stuff, mine.
Mine.
Belongs to moi.
Last day of work, just fucking get a U-Haul.
Maybe. I'm probably gonna call my friends and be like, yo, do you want some free fabric? Or probably call my dad, like, yo, can you drive me with my fabric? I don't know. Because like, I can't plan ahead for like what cosplays I want to do next year. You know?
Yeah, so you got to get a broad spectrum of different cloths for all the different possibilities.
Exactly.
Did you lose your train of thought, Jaws? What were you gonna say a minute
I
ago?
was just gonna like comment on the nap thing. I not personally sleep during the day very well, so I do not take advantage of it. But it wasn't that big of a deal, and you guys had moved on to a different topic, so I didn't mind. I'm curious, do you just like to use like the shoreline for all of your stuff, or like is there a reason?
Oh, well, for this, so for these crops over here, I'm just being lazy, and I know that within a certain number of blocks from a water source, the crops will be hydrated and the dirt will be hydrated, and I can keep planting. The sugarcane, of course, you have to plant next to water.
Well, yeah, but you can just like get some buckets and make your own little.
Yeah,
infinite
I
water
just
source.
don't feel like.
It's called being lazy.
Yeah, I just
Yeah,
don't feel
that's
like
fine.
terraforming an area and, you know, making it nice and uniform. I can just rip all this sugarcane out whenever I want to do that. But I'll probably wait to do that until I've got plentiful nether quartz, because I'm going to make observers and pistons that will automatically farm it for me as it grows.
Makes sense.
So why invest the time in building like a traditional style sugarcane farm whenever my end goal is going to be to automate it anyway?
Nothing wrong with that. Like I said, it was just out of curiosity.
Yeah, no, by all means. If there's anything I'm doing where you're like, why this? I'm happy to explain. There may not always be a reason, but I'll do my best to explain my rationale.
I don't have. I don't have automated stuff. That's not what I enjoyed the game for. I like being a little farm girl.
I think that it's very
I like
fun
to
and
get on
novel
my
that Minecraft has basic electrical engineering in it, so I pretty much always like to do a little bit of automation at the least.
The thing is that
Oh, yeah,
I
it's
wouldn't
brilliant.
even consider it electrical engineering. It is more logic based than it is electrical engineering. So to me, I would call it closer to programming. But I think that is just a difference in our profession and the way that we perceive the system itself.
Yeah, well, I mean, it definitely is logic gates, but logic gates are one of the foundational components of, like, making and maintaining electronics. Like, if you're trying to see how a circuit works, then you sort of fundamentally have to understand how logic gates work.
For a digital, yes. If you're just doing analog, there's no need. Which, as an analog electrical engineer, I mainly deal with, like I deal with plenty of active components. Don't get me wrong, but I don't do any of the clocking. I don't do any of the FPGA programming that analyzes an input-output, or I don't deal with the flip-flops that turn on and turn things off. I get voltages and currents to specific levels when they need to be there, basically.
Yeah.
And so again, I think it's just a perception thing. So, to me, as an analog person, I would consider all of these logic gate things to be a type of programming, which electrical engineers also do programming. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying
Yeah. Well, it's like really
programming.
low level. It's like really low level
Yeah.
programming. And
Yes.
it's the kind of low level programming that can be hard coded into how you configure certain types of electrical systems, like circuit boards, for
Yes.
instance. Printable circuit boards immediately come to mind. But yeah, of course, you know, if you're dealing with a fucking ceiling fan, you don't need like a functional logic gate component of any kind. You just need, you know, to pump voltage through it, or and like, of course, that I'm sure that is a radical oversimplification of the type of things that you work with as an analog engineer.
I can't even talk about what I work with, because it's all classified stuff. I can say, what can I say? I deal with a lot of power conversion. Doesn't really require any digital things at all. So here I'm using because I don't even know what I can say. Let's see. It's because I haven't
Alright,
been there
keep your
very long,
secrets.
and it's always safer to not say anything at all, right?
Oh, 100%, yeah.
True,
And I would
true.
rather, if you're not sure, that you play it safe.
Oh yeah.
Wouldn't want a Bob Lazarr situation.
I'm not even okay, so I watched the Netflix thing on that. I don't have any on that at all. I couldn't tell if it was credible or not. I didn't care enough to even go do research to see if it was credible or not. I have no idea if the dude has any sort of actual, like, experience, or if he's just actually batshit insane and making up everything.
I think that both of those are equally probable, personally. So I did put a lot of time, like, looking into it and stuff, because I feel like for anybody who really wants to believe that there is extraterrestrial life out there, you have to avoid your own bias, and you have to do, like, really diligent research to establish whether or not something is credible. So whenever I stumbled into all that rabbit hole, I was just like, well, I have to fucking know literally everything about this person and the whole situation and shit now. What I can say is that the only people that I can confidently say are a better source within that topic are obviously the military servicemen who had to deal with it as part of their regular job, and whose footage was released by the United States government confirming that there are aerial phenomenon that we have no capability of identifying, that you know, the technologies that we're witnessing on display in real time have no known analog with any country on the planet, and nothing that we know of is even close to it. But here's the thing. I think that we can live in a world where Bob Lazarr was a liar, but he was still right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that he could totally have just been correct by how those things perform by happenstance. But what I will say is that the thing that makes me lean towards he may be credible is the fact that those vehicles that we saw in the declassified footage behave in very similar ways to the way that Lazarr was describing. I don't think that that alone makes him a credible source, necessarily. But I do think that the more hard evidence that we've seen from reputable sources, the more I can make his story fit with reality. I don't think that everything that he said was 100% true. I think that there are more than a few things that he could have been lying about. And if I'm being perfectly honest, I do actually think that the most reasonable explanation for what Lazarr and his friends saw with the little light show over Area 51, I do actually think that the most likely explanation for that was probably charged particle experiments. Because whenever they were doing those types of experiments, they behaved in exactly the same way that Lazarr had described. And that goes both ways, right? It could totally be the case that they behaved as he described because that's how the vehicles behave, but it also could be the way it could be the way that he described it because he knew that that's the type of experiment that they were actually doing there, but was trying to come up with a way for him to basically get out of what he was doing without having to go through some sort of a messy legal dispute. Like he told a lie about what people were actually seeing so that he couldn't be prosecuted for sharing the type of secret he was trusted with working on for real. So I mean, there's like lots of possibilities for whether or not there's truth in what his story contained. But I will say that I find it very curious that all of the ships that we've seen, all of the craft that we've seen in those declassified military footages happen to resemble flight patterns that Bob Lazarr had described that have also been explained away as being potentially particle experiments, charged particle experiments. I'm trying to remember, it was like a photon, not a photon cannon. I know that it had something to do with fucking with photons, but I don't actually remember the type of experiment that it was.
Probably look at some of this unclassified footage. However, one, I'm gonna go ahead and say, from my personal opinion, there is 100% chance that they're extraterrestrials. It is just whether or not they are advanced enough to create some sort of travel system. B, whether or not they've ever actually been to this planet.
Yeah,
C,
no, I definitely agree. Like they definitely exist, and those are the
numbers
interesting
just
questions.
yeah.
Yeah,
Those are
that's my
definitely
point of
the
view as well.
interesting
Like,
questions.
They exist, they have to exist, but can we see them eventually? Probably not. But they exist somewhere.
I
Chances
kind
are
of,
too high for them to exist.
out of all the theories about whether or not aliens have visited Earth specifically, I actually kind of like the one potential explanation that maybe we were just one of the earliest bastions of life to spring up. Maybe we're first in line, but
that's my
that
outlook.
seems to be pretty heavily contradicted by the declassified Navy footage. Because, I mean, you can watch that shit. I think the gimbal footage in particular, it's like you see this thing pivoting in midair and just accelerating incredibly quickly. Like almost not really accelerating. It's like it just suddenly has a velocity. And it's nuts. It's nuts to see that. And to have confirmation that the government has no explanation for how that works at all.
Well,
Hold on, I gotta catch up on chat real quick. It was a good
I'm
Joe
sorry.
Rogan episode, I do believe. No joke. Yeah, what's up, Micah? No joke. Me and Lardo had a long talk the other day. I'm telling you, gravity, element 115. The shot photons at element 155. Yeah, I think Bob is legit. I don't know 100% one way or another. I can see a world where he's not a liar. I can see a world where he is a liar. I can see a world where he's right but was lying, or he was wrong but telling the truth. You know, all those things are very possible. Saw him on the Joe Rogan and Netflix. He doesn't seem like he's out to make a buck or get attention. Yeah, but his own conviction that he is speaking the truth isn't necessarily enough for me to grant him that he is telling the truth. I think we're like ants to them. They just don't care what we do. I'm really into this subject. See, the reason that I don't think that we would be like ants to them is because they seem, if they are in fact alien life forms and not some type of extremely advanced drone, they've been seen near nuclear installations. Like, they would almost certainly know that we have nuclear capabilities, and they would know that from a multitude of different pieces of evidence that they could select from, not even necessarily just, oh, they've got atom bombs. I'm sure that whenever we set off atomic explosions, there's probably like a neutrino or two more than there should be. You know, like there's a disproportionate number of high energy subatomic particles that are probably very detectable.
neutrinos ever released in an atomic bomb would be more than washed out by the sun. Like, we're just too close to the star.
You think it would just be like white noise
so
mixed into
because
white
of-
noise?
Yes, the interaction rate of a neutrino is so absurdly low, unless, of course, they have a detector which interacts with weak nuclear force, and the neutrinos have a much higher cross section in their detector than anything that we've ever built. Then maybe they'll get 1 in a billion precision, and then they could see it. But there's absolutely no way, no conceivable way, rather, that they would be able to detect the difference between an atomic bomb releasing an extra few million neutrinos and what the sun outputs on the order of 10 to the 26 neutrinos every second. Like, you're talking about many orders of magnitude difference here.
Okay, maybe neutrinos specifically were the wrong thing, but I assume
know,
that there
but
is some
that's what
artifact.
my brain latched on to, so I apologize.
No, I appreciate the thorough explanation of that, because knowing that it's not relevant to that conversation is valuable information. Don't think that I'm like saying, oh, you focused on the wrong part of what I was saying. But what I mean is that there has to be some leftover artifact of us performing nuclear experiments and detonating nuclear payloads. There has to be some artifact of that is detectable for sure.
Because there are relatively stable isotopes of things. I mean, that's what carbon dating is, right? You can tell how old something is based on carbon dating because what is that sound? I mean, I know that.
She's having tics.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. It just happened randomly, and so I was wondering if it was you were reacting to something. Okay, that's fine. So I apologize for bringing that up if that bothers you. I was just curious.
That's fine. If you don't know, you don't know. There's no harm in asking, bro. I don't think Kai would be offended by you not knowing.
Huh?
Exactly.
Anyway, the effects of the nuclear weapon you can definitely tell, and that is literally the entire basis of radiocarbon dating. Or there's even longer isotopes like rubidium and strontium. You can definitely see the effects. They would have to come here and observe them, and that just gets back to whether or not they can or care to come here to observe them.
Yeah. Oh, I think that there's only two other compelling possible explanations other than they've been here in craft that we don't understand. And I think that those are equipment malfunctions, which, judging from the stories of these Navy pilots, it's not like they have physically seen them. It's not just something that they've seen on instruments, but they don't have they didn't get close enough to them to be able to make out details of them. They just could see them, could monitor their behavior. They could verify that they appeared on the instruments as well.
Gimbal. Yeah, I'm looking at this. It says USS Roosevelt gimbal UFO declassified video. You can't even see what this thing is. It's just a black blob and sort of the shape of a blimp.
Keep in mind that black blob for people with like actual military experience that work with those types of radar systems, that's plenty enough for them to look at and glean a ton of information. And like you can see various pieces of information all over the HUD in the video itself as well. So that even though it might not be super impressive to you or I, those instrument readouts are actually, for people that deal with those, it is my understanding that's damn good evidence, regardless of if it's got the kind of detail that might be satisfying to you or I. Like it's the same system that we, that we track targets with whenever we're using like homing missiles and shit. Like they've got them sort of locked down, and then their instruments just fucking lose it, and they see that it's like accelerated and fucking like it's not as like out of all of the quote unquote alien footage that I've ever seen, that shit is the most compelling evidence that I've ever seen in my life that aliens have visited planet Earth for sure. But instrument malfunction, I can't rule that out, because I guess the part of me that wants to believe that humans are bad at their job is like, well, maybe the instruments weren't calibrated and everybody that was there fucking got the same readings on their instruments at the same time because they were all poorly calibrated or something like. I can't rule that out. That's a possibility for sure. But the other possibility to me is that it is a form of advanced drone technology that is just the most deeply classified shit that some other superpower has created. Like, that's the only other explanation I can come up with that's a satisfactory explanation. The gimbal video is not the only video, by the way. There's, I think, 2 or 3 other videos as well.
It's not actually accelerating that much. It only goes from like 238 to 242 knots. It's not that big of a change in speed. So in terms of acceleration, it doesn't actually like take off the way that. So I'm just looking specifically at the data readouts here, and I mean its altitude doesn't look like it's changing.
Have you watched the whole thing at this point?
I mean, it's only like 2 minutes long, isn't it? Or this version of it that I'm watching, yeah. Yeah,
I mean the primary footage that I've seen that I'm talking about right now is not very long now.
Yeah.
But the gimbal, I think if I recall correctly, the thing that was craziest about the gimbal was that it changed direction without momentum seeming to affect it.
The fact that it just rotated.
Yeah.
And I can imagine it doesn't matter what I can imagine, but rotation like that isn't necessarily that impressive in my opinion.
Could be tied to their DNA to operate.
So I would like
wild
to see
speculation.
A lot more evidence. Obviously, everyone would like to see a lot more evidence, but just looking at strictly the acceleration data in this video, this little 2-minute clip, and the fact that it rotates doesn't mean anything to me.
Let me see if I can. Hold on. Let me see if I can find the other video, because the other video it's like
look at stuff.
The other video it's like it's another Navy. It's either Navy or Air Force. I can't remember which one. But the thing accelerates like it fucking blinks out of existence basically. But that's not all that it does. It flies, but is also submergible. It fucking goes into the ocean from the
Really?
air. Yes. Let me see if I can find this one. Navy
Sounds very
UFO
interesting.
footage. And like, here's the thing: these are just the videos that they've released to us and stuff. These are
Right.
something that are so regularly encountered that it's not a secret to these pilots that deal with these patrols. Let's see, I forget, was the gimbal done from a ship or was it done from an aircraft? Does it
It's
say?
from an aircraft. It's done at 25,000 feet.
Okay, yeah. Better be an aircraft.
Okay, I'm going to sleep because I work tomorrow.
Alrighty, you have a good rest, Kai.
Goodbye.
The GGs, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for chatting with us. The Pentagon released 3 videos itself. I'm finding like news clips that have the videos, but I would much rather just newly leaked video shows a UFO disappearing into the water. CNN Business. Let's see if this actually has the video or links to the video.
A flying car combines.
I am Ravi Shankar, transportation and airlines analyst. How can data empower you? Okay, yeah. This is the one. Oh my god. This shit is like it's like something out of a cartoon, but our fucking military declassified it. Here. It fucking goes into the water and it just fucking bloop. No longer tracked. But there's multiple of these videos. It's not just the gimbal one. The gimbal one is just the one I remember because it's got a unique name.
I'm actually looking at a preliminary assessment of UAPs, a PDF that was released in 2021. So I will read through that.
Just to see if it's like some kind of a
Yeah.
UAV or a drone that is just far more capable than what we've seen previously.
And this is, well, the fact is that, one, this is a credible source because it's like literally from the Director of National Intelligence, and it's like at this point almost a year old, so it's fairly recent. And it's an actual document instead of a, I mean, I don't want to say low quality video, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I just mean those videos are not from a questionable source. They were released
I'm not
by the
saying that
Pentagon.
The videos are questionable. I'm saying that from our standpoint, we cannot pull as much from the video, right? Because we don't know how the instruments behave.
Yeah, fair. Yeah. What I will say though is that the UFO footage, all the stuff that we've discussed up to this point is not nearly as interesting as one particular key point about it. You know Blink 182?
I've heard of it.
The band? Yeah, you're familiar?
Yeah.
Tom DeLonge of Blink 182 is the reason that those UFO videos were released to the public.
Wow.
He has an organization that does a lot of what is it called? FICA, Freedom of Information Act. That's probably not the right acronym, but they do those like
Well,
Freedom of Information
So I'll
Act
go and tell you that
release
no matter
requests.
no matter what sort of freedom of information or information gathering procedures you try to go through, there are certain procedures in place that no law enforcement could ever compel me to release information that I know on what I work on. There's literally no one outside of people at the very top of the executive branch that could literally force me to say things.
Well, the first video that came out was leaked, and his organization put a shitload of pressure through various information requests and through a publicity campaign to get them to officially acknowledge that leaked video. And then sort of as a response to all of that pressure, they actually released all 3 of those videos.
Interesting.
So a fucking pop punk band. A pop punk band is the reason that we have declassified footage of UFOs
So at
through
the start of
military
this
instruments.
video, are we sure this thing's actually flying? Because it's only going 31 knots.
But look at it just fucking plunge into the water. Like,
Yeah, it just. Oh yeah, I see that. That I'm not arguing that point. I'm just wondering if it's actually flying. Because it's going very fucking slow.
well, I think that,
I mean,
and there's been interviews with the people who were manning the
I
vehicles.
guess it would have to be slow if it's gonna go from if it's literally transitioning between air, which has a virtually no resistance,
Into
to
water.
which is
Yeah.
very high resistance. So the speed, I'll believe that.
But if I'm not
And then-
mistaken, the pilot responsible for that video said that they actually saw it coming in extremely quickly and then like idling over a spot for a little while. And that's what the footage shows is just the craft idling, because that's when the instruments could get a really clear lock onto it. And whenever it like takes the plunge, there's audio to it too, which I don't think that the audio was in that CNN video, but it's like more than one pilot having a discussion about what they're looking at, and they like I forget what the military term is for dropping into the water very quickly the way that it did. Huh?
Splashed. They say it's splashed.
Yeah, it splashed. They're like, it splashed. What? They like freak out over the fact that it fucking went into the water. What do you think, Micah? So you think that do you think that they are literally using the Bob Lazar exotic state of matter gravity engine thing? My only qualm with that is that it requires something magical that we have not seen and have no knowledge of. Ooh. Is that matcha cake? Ooh. Looks like an angel food cake almost. Mmm. Yeah, that is really tasty. Taiwan tea honey cake. Delicious. Mmm. But with regard to UFOs and whether or not aliens have visited our planet, I'm with you. I don't think that the videos like prove conclusively, oh, aliens have visited this planet and these are their craft. But out of all of the evidence that I've ever seen that people have contributed on the matter, and keep in mind, aliens, UFOs, there's something about the topic that seems to attract people that don't have the firmest grasp on reality. You know, you get lots of reports that are like from people who experienced like delusions, things that were not real, that they are reporting as though they were real. So I don't really trust any any sources when it comes to historical documentation of UFO and alien phenomenon. Like,
Huh.
I
Interesting.
don't.
So,
Oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
Sorry.
No, you've got something.
144 reports originated from the U.S. government sources. Of these, 80 reports involved observation with multiple sensors. Most reports describe UAP as objects that interrupted pre-planned training or other military activity. In one case, again, this is out of 144, with high confidence, it was identified as a large deflating balloon. So 1 out of 144, but mostly it says that limited data leaves these unexplained.
Yeah, that's
So
a
really,
wild thing for our government to admit, in my opinion. You don't really see a lot of.
Imagine you got one fucking aircraft carrier out there, right, in the middle of the ocean somewhere. It sees something. We have no idea what the fuck it is. We don't know if it's from another country. We don't know if it's from another planet. All right, so let's just start there. It's
Right.
detecting crazy fucking motion. The problem is you cannot rely on just a single set of data measurements, even if there are multiple measurements from the same craft. You would need multiple points of
Multiple
measurement
from multiple craft. And if this was
Exactly.
like an isolated incident, then, you know, I would easily be like, well, it could have been some kind of an equipment malfunction. But it's common enough, not just for that one
I'm not
craft.
saying it's equipment, but
Hmm?
I am saying that I'm not saying that it's an equipment problem. More than likely, and I'm gonna say more than likely because, in my opinion, that there is no reason to believe at this point that aliens are the cause. It's never aliens until it is, kind of thing.
Well, yeah,
It's
I'm of the exact same mentality. I am not under the opinion that these videos signify that we have, you know, met little green men or they've stepped foot on Earth or anything like that. I just mean to say that if ever there was a reliable piece of evidence that points to that as a possibility, those videos are it. And I think that Bob Lazar's story, as compelling as it is and as down to earth as he seems, and as much as his story, you know, is compelling in light of these videos, I still find his testimony to be only one step above your average, you know, nut job ranting and raving about being abducted and being probed.
right.
And what's really funny about the people that report being abducted in particular, I've done a little bit of research into that as well, and some of the best psychologists in the world actually think that those are memories of your birth that are being sort of misconstrued.
Interesting.
Because whenever you're born and you go from darkness to this very bright light. You see people that are in weird, you know, a weird get up that you don't see very often in the real world, and they do a bunch of traumatic shit to you, and it's like a, you know, even if you don't have a clear memory of it right now, it's the first trauma you ever go through, so it's deeply imprinted in your psychology on some level. It's in there somewhere, and a lot of people in the psychological community think that the reports of alien abduction are very likely to be a sort of dream that they had that took them back to the memory of their birth and sort of took those sensations and those images and those traumas and sort of misrepresented them to the person experiencing them. And I think that that's way more likely than, you know, Jimbo got butt fucked by aliens.
That is very interesting. I had not heard that, but that actually sounds like reputable information.
Yeah, no, I think that that's a very compelling explanation that gets rid of a lot of the less credible stories that come from that community. So I only really think of Bob Lazar's story as being one step above Jimbo getting fucked by aliens, misremembering his own birth. The military stuff, I am absolutely, without any resistance, willing to concede that it doesn't it does not represent proof that aliens have visited, and that it's simply being unexplainable by our current understanding of
Okay,
like
so they actually
aerodynamics
try
and
to
shit.
release this information. Okay,
Hmm?
so I can talk about this because they talk about it in the report. Every military application of sensors, super highly fucking specific for what their goal is. They are not designed to be broad application-based sensing devices. And therefore, when they're looking at something that they aren't expecting, be it a balloon or another fucking craft that they don't know what it is, or a spaceship, it's not gonna be the best tool to analyze that situation.
Yeah, and that goes both ways too. Like on the one hand, you know, yeah, of course, if it's not a part of the expected scenario, it's not part of what the equipment is for, then it's not going to be a great representation of it. But it not being a great representation of it is also not a piece of dismissible like evidence
Also,
that it's not what we could interpret it to be as well.
well, when I say that it's highly specific, let's say the goal is specifically to look at objects traveling at specific speeds, at specific weights, at specific altitudes. And you have a device meant to track these objects. If it is too far outside of those very, very, very specific parameters, it will not perform as well. And then if it gets too far away from that, it will not perform at all. And this also applies to the electromagnetic spectrum. If you're looking at something at microwave wavelengths,
It's not going to see anything from radio because it's way too long, and it's looking for a
Yes,
very
and
narrow wavelength.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
No, that
I'm
makes
surprised
perfect
they
sense to me.
released this information.
Huh?
I'm surprised they released that information in this report, actually.
Well, I mean, think about it. In practical, like, combat applications, the enemy, even without having this information released publicly, whatever enemies you're tracking are going to sort of fundamentally understand that that's true. Like, I don't think anybody thinks that, you know, we've got, like, a magic crystal ball that gives us powerful lock-on that can transcend all possible scenarios. I think most people tend to understand that specialized technology only works within its very defined thresholds. But
Yes,
that
enemies
alone
would
is
think
not
that.
that alone is not a compelling enough argument for me to ignore the possibilities presented in those videos either.
So it says here in 18 incidents described in 21 reports, observers reported unusual UAP movement patterns or flight characteristics, which is what you're mentioning. Some UAP appeared to remain stationary in winds aloft, move against the wind, maneuver abruptly, or maneuver at considerable speed without discernible means of propulsion. In a small number of cases, military aircraft processed radio frequency energy associated with UAP sightings.
Bro, those motherfucking things, after all we've discussed, I don't know why I haven't brought this up. A lot of times, whenever they encounter those things, they experience active radar jamming.
I mean,
Whatever
so when you
whatever
say
some
that,
of those instruments
actually,
are capable of jamming different forms of communication and different types of instruments.
well, so that's actually not that difficult, and the fact that you say that it's aimed at that makes me believe it's human even more, because there is, okay, I'm not going to say that there's no way, very improbable chances of some other species knowing the exact wavelength that we use for our radio frequency detection systems. So, in order for it to jam something, unless they have broadband jamming systems used insane
I think that for the sake of argument, we can assume that if if they are here and they have some kind of wild technology, that it's very possible that our understanding of the limitations of radar jamming or other forms of data interference might not necessarily be within the scope of like I'm not saying that it's not improbable for like a broad spectrum jammer to, you know, just happen to be on board with them, but it doesn't take very large jumps to get to a rationale where it's possible for them to do that type of thing. I understand that that's not like a concrete basis for arguing against, you know, I'm just saying that it is very possible that we are dealing with something that actually does have quite advanced technology. And while you know, jamming a radio frequency is a very specific thing and it might require very specific knowledge to do effectively, that's with our understanding of those technologies. And I think that it's safe to say that if it's doing things in the air that we can't explain, it's also reasonable to assume that it would have other technological capabilities that we couldn't necessarily explain.
So here's my counter to that. If they have it, which they very well could have it, and they turn it on, one, why would they turn it on? Two, if they choose to turn it on, that not only stops us from seeing them effectively, it stops them seeing us effectively through the same channels. Unless you're going to say they have some other means at looking at us, which is completely, all right, sure, I'll give you that. In this case, what is their reason for stopping us from analyzing them if they come here to analyze us?
I have no real rebuttal to that whatsoever.
You don't understand their psychology. There would be no way to understand that. It is a very simple counter to, okay, they're jamming all of our technology. I mean, why do they care? If they're that advanced and they have apparently been watching us for a very long time, I don't see why they would consider us.
Well, if they've been watching us for a long time, then I would think that they would also have a lot of information about how our systems work.
Correct. But why would they consider us enough of a threat that they need to stop us from watching them? And again, that's more
I don't necessarily agree with the notion that some sort of active jamming would only happen if they perceived us to be some sort of threat, though.
Do you think it would just be a precaution that would happen at all times?
Not necessarily at all times, but I would think, okay, just putting myself in the shoes of you know, I'm in an alien planet. I know that they don't really know a lot about me. You know, maybe I do decide to be a little careful, or maybe I notice them and I'm like, I'm gonna fuck with them. And like, legitimately, if we are, you know, so irrelevant to them or anything like that, why would they not just fuck with us from time to time? You think about it, you totally would, right? I totally would. If I had some ridiculous command over technology that was not understood by a galactic local or whatever, a certain part of me, a certain percentage of my energy would certainly go to just fucking around with people.
I'm also thinking, if they're here on a mission, would they not be acting professional? But maybe that's a very humanistic way of looking at things. They are here to study us, obviously, if they keep coming here. Or that's the only reason why they would come here, unless they're taking stuff away from our planet, which they could be. We don't ever fucking see them leave. We just see them show up on occasion, right? Maybe they do take stuff and leave. That's their reason for coming. But under this assumption, they're here to study us. If they have been here and studying us for a decent amount of time, I don't see why, after this much time, they would not want us to see them. So, using your analogy of us going to look at an alien planet, well, say we've been studying this planet for what, like 50 years, 70 years, or whatever. We've deemed, okay, we've studied them for quite some time. There's no need to burn our energy to run a jamming system on all of their instruments. But maybe they have infinite amount of energy. They don't.
Yeah. Well, I would think that whatever they're using, whether it's, you know, just a more efficient battery than what we have access to, or if they have some way of, you know, generating enough energy to sustain whatever exotic propulsion system I'm not going to pretend like I've got anywhere near enough information to address what type of power source an alien would be using, but I don't think that that's necessarily an interesting enough component of that to care about, because whatever amount of energy a system like that would use is probably not, it's probably not even a blip on the radar when you compare it to some of the functionalities that craft would have to be capable of and how much energy those functionalities would use.
That's fair.
Like, I think that the use of a system like that may have been purposeless, or it may have been a byproduct of said exotic propulsion system, or it may have been a show of force, even like hey, I know what you can do, and I need you to know that doesn't matter to me. That kind of a frame of mind, right? Like there's multiple possibilities for why active jamming has been used in a number of these encounters, but the like military personnel involved have commented on the fact that they are using active jamming in some of these encounters, and whether or not it makes sense, that's what some otherwise incredibly professional, reputable, not dishonorably discharged members of the military have said whenever interviewed on the topic. So I'm inclined to take their word for it, primarily because of the fact that they're not, raving Jimbo talking about being butt fucked by aliens. Like their conversations on the matter are very candid. They're very professional. There's not a lot of I don't have a lot of reasons to doubt those people, where,
Right.
Jimbo, on the other hand, I can come up with a few different reasons to doubt what he's saying.
Yeah, that's fair. So here's another thing that they straight up admit. Some UAP observations could be attributable to developments and classified programs by U.S. entities. We are unable to confirm, however, that these systems accounted for any of the UAP reports we collected.
Right,
So
which is basically just saying that, if all that to me is just the same kind of precautionary, maybe we have it, maybe we don't type shit that they would attach to basically any kind of statement on our tech capabilities. Like that to me is just like legalese. Easily, we're still being extra careful. Yeah, no, I think that's perfectly reasonable, Cryptid. 110% that's perfectly reasonable. But I think that it's important to acknowledge that this is purely speculation. What we have are grainy videos and a couple of testimonies, and then like one or two documents that have been released that talk about those things, and like data aggregation on the matter. So, I mean, we do not have a smoking gun that says, yes, we can prove definitively aliens are here, this is what they're doing, this is why they're doing it. We have nothing like that. But in the realm of like UFO sightings and other sort of unexplained aerial phenomena, that shit right there is the closest that community has to a holy grail. Like actual declassified military footage confirmed by, professionals that are not disgraced in their field, talking about it as though it's just another, mission, just another data point of another mission. I think that committing to any analysis of, the motivations or pretending to know anything about it is kind of a bad idea. But acknowledging that it's weird shit that we can't explain with any information that we have available to us, that's the only thing that I would take away from it, is that, oh shit, there's something out there that we don't know, and we know that we don't know it. It's a known unknown, to put it in Pulp Fiction terms. But I think that part of the statement, in addition to, their disclaimer about, we don't know that this isn't a byproduct of some American, secret operation. We don't know about whether or not it's a piece of our own technology. Part of the statement also says something about they are not a confirmed part of our arsenal, nor can we confirm it to be a part of any foreign nation's arsenal. We acknowledge that there's information that we don't have as part of that release, but we also acknowledge that with the information that we do have, we have no idea of any entity on the planet that has that technology right now that we can confirm.
Well, by the way that it's worded, it makes me think that at least some of these 144 reports are, and they're just not able to confirm it.
Yeah, and that's
makes me think that some of them are likely deployed by China, Russia, or another nation, or non-governmental
or even
entities,
or even our government, part of an operation that, whatever team that reported that data couldn't confirm. Like it's equally possible that it's part of our arsenal and we just are playing stupid, right?
But not even they're not even playing stupid. It's that they just actually don't have access to it. There is such a thing as need to know in the classification.
No,
So,
I'm very aware of that. Yeah, no, I don't mean like we're playing stupid on purpose. I just mean like there's somebody in our government that could identify what it is, but we're clearly not going to do it because of the classified nature of whatever the technology is. No, I'm very conscientious of that, but it also, by that same token, they clearly state that as far as public information goes, we have no knowledge of what this could be. Now, out of the 144 the 144 incidents that you're talking about, I would be shocked if some of them weren't our own equipment or the equipment of some foreign power or some private entity. I would actually be shocked if there weren't, X number of those incidents that fit that completely. But the fact that there's any incidents that they're willing to state that they don't have information on, where it's like truly, we don't know what the fuck we saw. That's a super compelling narrative to me. And like I said before, whenever you want to believe in certain things like that, you got to be extra diligent about the positions that you take, and you have to respect your own bias and make sure that you're not playing into confirmation bias just because you want to believe it so badly. I definitely wouldn't pretend to know definitively whether or not we've been visited by extraterrestrials, but I don't know for certain that we haven't either. And I don't know that that's how I would have felt like 2 years ago if we were having this conversation then. I would, at that point in time, I probably would have been like, It's probably pretty unlikely that we've been visited by aliens. We were probably among the first life to develop, really. So, you know, if other civilizations do exist and they do have advanced technology, I just think that it's unlikely that they would have visited us. You know, like I would have had a dozen different reasons to be like,
So, you brought
it's
that up a
more
couple
unlikely than not that they visited. What did you say?
Did you like the notion that we were among the early life to develop? Like, life on this planet developed something like 4 billion years ago, right? That's 10 billion years into the universe's existence almost.
So I tend to think of the timeline of the universe in terms of milestones where more complex shit became possible. And I know that Earth isn't like a new or like isn't an old planet. I know that our star isn't an old solar system, but I also know that the intricate mix of amino acids that would have been necessary for the primordial soup to eventually sort of spontaneously generate life, that level of complexity didn't come too far over the most recent milestone of the like last generation of supernovas that generated really heavy metals.
Right, second generation stars, but the first generation of stars only lasted something on the order of 1 billion years.
Yeah.
Second generation of stars all started dying within 3 billion to 5 billion years, which pushed you at the earliest 4 billion years after the universe, at the latest somewhere around 7-8 billion years. Both of those much sooner than our star developed.
Right. I think that my primary basis for that being one of the explanations that I would lean on is just the fact that the universe is incredibly inhospitable to life. And so I think that it's reasonable to assume that while life surely has developed multiple times across all of the different instantiations of a biosphere that you see throughout the entire universe, or that you can statistically assume is there in the universe, I don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility that there's just been so many overtly hostile environments in which a biosphere could not exist. I don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility that we would have been, you know, maybe the first generation of life to form or the second generation of life to form. But either way, I don't think necessarily that life is this thing that is very sustainable. Like, everything about how our universe functions tries to interfere with life continuing to exist. So, you know, I don't necessarily mean that we were among the first life forms to form, but maybe we were among the first life forms to, you know, obtain multicellular structures and eventually turn into these sort of macroscopic organisms made of a lot of smaller microorganisms. And I don't think that any of those are sort of big jumps or like leaps that you have to do a lot of mental gymnastics to come up with. I just think that the universe is such an inhospitable place that even with billions of years having passed since the second generation of stars and the new creation of these really heavy elements, I think that it's entirely possible that life blinked in and out of existence in what we would consider a fraction of a percentage of the total amount of time having passed. And I think that the sustained existence of life is certainly significantly rarer than instances of life popping up and disappearing faster than you can blink. You know what I mean?
I would agree with that. I just think the numbers are so large that there are likely thousands of other civilizations out there that are even beyond our observable universe.
Oh yeah. I genuinely don't have any concern with whether or not that's true. Like, the mathematics on that, it's significantly more likely than not. It's basically a statistical impossibility that we're like alone in the universe. It's almost certainly a statistical impossibility that life is not somewhat common.
Right.
But an advanced civilization beyond our level of technology, that's certainly a rare thing to occur. You know, and even thinking about like how far would they have to get to generate radio waves that would be capable of being detected across vast spaces.
Well, that depends. Let's say that they develop around a much smaller star that is much cooler, and therefore their bodies or whatever their physical structure are also much cooler than ours. We are actually relatively warm beings, and so we radiate in the infrared.
Infrared, yeah.
But if you're cooler, you will radiate in longer wavelengths. So you can have an entire society of beings that straight up radiate in radio emission just because their cellular structure, or whatever the hell they're made out of, is so much cooler than we are.
Right, but how far would you have to go to then take it into, and they're able to communicate with the radio waves that come from their bodies?
That wouldn't be that hard. Like, so we have animals on our planet that communicate through body. Imagine if you and I could communicate through infrared. It would be like fucking telepathy. You could see the way that we're feeling, because you could see that my face was getting flushed and the blood vessels in my face are like starting to expand and I'm releasing more heat. That is, in my opinion, a form of telepathy. You're straight up reading the way that I am feeling. It wouldn't be, in my opinion, that big of a stretch to say an organism developed some sort of body that didn't need to be at several hundred degrees Kelvin to operate, and therefore can emit its own black body radiation in the radio wave spectrum, and then they also communicate in that spectrum.
I guess it's not that far of a jump. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's reasonable, especially like just thinking about the mantis shrimp, right? Being able to see in every wavelength of the spectrum.
Most of them, yeah. Their eyes are all kinds of fucking crazy.
Oh, that's probably the nuttiest sensor nature ever developed.
And they don't even use 95% of it.
Well, I mean, yeah, thus the reason that the rest of us evolved to use visible light by far and large.
Right.
Only filtering for the most useful data, right?
Mm-hmm.
But no, I guess that's pretty reasonable.
Our atmosphere filters out a lot of like the electromagnetic spectrum. Our atmosphere filters out almost all the infrared because water is an insane absorber of infrared energy. It obviously filters out most of the high energy stuff.
Right.
And then there's a huge band where you've got a little bit of UV, a little bit of visible light, and then you get a huge block of infrared, and then there's a large band of radio and microwave stuff that all gets through, and then very long radio emissions all gets trapped, which is how AM works. It actually just bounces off the inside of the atmosphere, essentially, the ionosphere, but still.
I have a question for you, Jaws.
Yeah, go ahead.
Would you have any opposition to me posting this conversation on YouTube?
I don't care.
Lit. Because I think that this is interesting content personally. And it's a shame that there's only 2 or 3 folks here with us. I feel like we could be having this conversation for hours on hours with enough people involved. But not to derail that. What do you think that the chances are if, okay, let's say that the organism that radiates radio waves, right? What do you think that the chances would be of those waves being high enough energy that it would reach a meaningful distance in space?
Well, so it has nothing to do with the radio waves in like intensity and energy, or sorry, energy. It has to do with like the intensity and whether or not it's like focused. So the planet itself is going to radiate. The objects on the planet are going to radiate. The star is radiating. It's whether or not you discern its output versus everything around it, right? So we can send out signals because we can focus them.
Right.
We can basically bunch it up in a way such that it's very discernible from everything around it. How likely would it be that some organism that just radiates their form of body heat in a very low energy state to be able to send a focused signal like that?
Yeah,
Probably
I
not
think
very likely.
I think in that use case, in that sort of fantasy scenario, even if those are very reasonable possibilities for how such an organism could communicate, the likelihood of it getting back to us, that's like not happening. So back to the
It
sort of
depends. If we're saying that thing is technologically advanced, then
oh
just
right,
because
yeah, no, if they
navigate
become technologically advanced enough that they can use machines to amplify radio
Correct.
waves and focus them and broadcast those throughout the universe.
correct. But the organisms themselves would not be able to, unless they're insane powerful.
That was kind of where my mind was disconnecting a little bit, was like, yeah, but it's still going to be an organism. It's probably going to be dependent on like chemical energy sources. It's not going to have a rich enough supply of energy that it could or enough finesse with its biomechanical setup for that to be able to, you know, in some way communicate with us through their biological means. Yeah. But I think that to loop this back into the whole like branch of the conversation when we got started on that, I think that it's reasonable to assume that while life may be relatively common, technologically advanced life is almost certainly exponentially rarer.
Agreed.
And so even if we weren't among the first, you know, intelligent life forms to develop, or even if we weren't the first bastion of life that existed for a couple million years or whatever, it's still pretty reasonable in my mind that other alien civilizations might not be as far ahead of us as we like to imagine that they are. Like we have this picture of aliens and alien technology as though, you know, they've had like 1 billion years advantage on top of whatever we've got. And
Well, so that assumes that their species could even last that long. I think we touched on this earlier. Most species on our planet do not last. I mean, no species that is alive today, besides bacteria, lasts 1 billion years.
yeah,
You know?
yeah.
That's a really, really long fucking time for a species to last.
Yeah, and honestly, based on our current trajectory, I think that a technologically advanced enough society is almost certainly, it's got to have a high likelihood to self-detonate too. Like, if you look at least the tribal nature of humans and our sort of failure to see bigger picture items that we could be focusing our time and energy and blood and tears on, if some component of that is also commonplace with other forms of intelligent life, where, you know, they're sort of tribal and they sort of work in silos, and there's enemies and allies and shit, I think it's pretty safe to assume that, you know, not every possible form of life is going to make it outside of that phase of existence where they're struggling against their own internal powers to, you know, conquer the planet or to express enough autonomy to do, you know, cool spacefaring stuff, right?
That makes me think the best technological species would be a hive mind species. They would all agree towards one goal You could have the occasional defector, sure, but the entire hive would then kill it. And everything would just be agreed upon. You wouldn't have these interspecies squabbles, and it wouldn't necessarily take, like in our case, thousands of years to go from caves technologically advanced. You might have a species that gets there in a few hundred years instead.
Yeah.
Could you imagine a hive mind species like that was technologically advanced going out to explain or going out to examine other planets? And what would their point in hiding? Because at that point they would only be sending drone, literally expendable pieces of their hive.
You know what you're describing, right?
What?
The Covenant from Halo.
Am I?
Yeah, it's like
See, I never played the story of Halo in a way that I actually like paid
Process
attention.
the
Just
story.
killed the shit. Yeah, I just killed the shit.
So
Not even
to
talking
set
about this
the
before when you were playing Halo.
to set the comparison here, the Covenant is of course the large alien faction that serves as the primary enemy throughout the series, and the Covenant is actually it's an organization of a lot of different species of alien that share a common religious belief, basically. And so in their context, religion is this unifying factor. There's not necessarily a hive mind in the Covenant, but there are hive minds in the Halo universe. That's what the Flood is. They're a parasitic hive mind species. But basically, the Covenant is a sort of inordinately advanced group of religious zealots that are held together through military prowess and through this common religious belief that they have. And so they are able to organize different species with different backgrounds and, you know, different specializations and shit into a cohesive unit because they all sort of share this vision for, they all share this sort of collaborative misinterpretation of the purpose of the Halo structures that you're trying to destroy as the Master Chief, right? So the thing that you've described, there's a very clear parallel in popular science fiction in the form of the Covenant from Halo.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
I'm not surprised that I wasn't the first one to think of it. Obviously, it's a common thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're just like, you know,
I would
top of our
imagine
head
it'd be highly
coming up with ideas.
successful, that's for sure. I would imagine it to be highly successful, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously in universe it's going to be whatever they want it to be, but no, I mean, thematically it all works pretty well. You know, it serves as a good basis for the suspension of your disbelief that, oh, there's fucking aliens and there's superhumans that have to fight the aliens, and like it's compelling writing. It's not lazy. It's pretty well done, pretty well thought out. You know, what if we had to deal with a big conglomerate of species that actually had a common goal and a binding infrastructure that made them a functional unit? Like, I don't even think that Halo's the first one to come up with something like that, but whatever, you know, esoteric Isaac Asimov shit that they stole the idea from.
Asimov had some crazy fucking ideas. I've read some of his stuff.
Oh, Asimov is one of my favorite authors, dude. Asimov was a fucking visionary for sure.
Oh man, it's gone. It's just too late for me to even recall. It doesn't matter. Some of the stuff that I've read by him, it just, like, when you mention his name, it just, like, flashes of it, but I can't even recall a title right now. It doesn't matter.
All that you need to know is that if it has Asimov's name on it, it's a mind fuck. Back now I'm lost. Sorry if you're lost. We've been discussing different angles of the evidence for aliens that we were discussing earlier, the sort of footage that was declassified by the Pentagon, and then that sort of turned into some conversations about, like, different physics components that could be at play, and different. We're just having a lot of fun speculating on hypotheticals more than anything. You know, Jaws working in the profession that he does is a particularly interesting person to have these conversations with, because he has a lot of hands-on experience with physics and is a pretty well-learned guy, if you don't mind the gushing and sucking your dick about it.
I think you overstated it just a tad, but I will allow it.
I think that's just you being humble. Most people would be lost within the first 5 minutes of this conversation, not necessarily because, oh, I'm so brilliant that I'm difficult to follow, but because it's the kind of shit not a lot of people think about, you know? Or at least they don't think about it in the same ways.
I've spent my life studying things that most people do not care about.
Yeah, that's the takeaway, is that most people don't care enough about the topic to consider it in the ways that we're discussing it. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just think that it's nice to have somebody who's got a little bit more academia behind them to talk about this sort of shit with. Because normally it's just me, you know, I'm just talking about the shit I read on the internet and trying to corroborate that with what I know about science stuff. Might be wondering why we haven't found them yet. That's kind of the idea, right? An organ like that would cost a lot in evolution points, wouldn't they? Have to give up other things in order to get that. Yeah, they've got to take a debuff to be able to broadcast radio waves. It's just.
Well, we weren't talking about an organ. We were talking about the fact that its entire body is just operating at low enough temperature that
instead of radiating infrared like we do, it's in theory possible that something could be cool enough that the form of radiation that it emits is radio. So if you know anything about the electromagnetic spectrum, X-rays, UV, visible light, radio, microwave, gamma rays, X-rays, all that shit, it's all the same kind of thing. It's just the intensity, the frequency, that is the number of times that the pattern of the wave repeats, are different, and the sizes of those waves are different, like the actual physical measurement of how large they are, essentially. So like a radio wave isn't actually that different from a light wave. It's the same kind of thing. It's just in that case it's shorter, right? No, a radio wave is much longer than infrared.
Correct.
Yeah.
The frequency is higher and the wavelength is shorter for an infrared than it is a radio.
Yeah. Let's see. Me and my neighbor can't even get along. I'm high. Well, I'm sure you're enjoying this conversation double. Having fun, though? I'm glad you're having fun. I hope that we haven't lost anyone here, but I know it's inevitable that we have, for sure. Somebody watching was like, what the fuck are these nerds talking about? Let me get out of here. This is all I think about. Me and Clayton had a good talk. Were you talking about his interpretation of sort of biblical history sort of shit? Because if so, then I think I know what kind of conversation you may have had. Yeah, I've had that conversation with them as well. And I actually love those kinds of takes on it. I think that makes way more sense than anything supernatural. I'm the kind of person, and Micah, I don't know if you know this about me or if you even give a shit, but I've been an atheist for a very long time. I don't have any beliefs in any type of supernatural thing. If I can't observe it, then it's not real. That's kind of my go-to angle on things. But I like to see those sort of creative interpretations of things like the Bible, because to me, those interpretations make a whole lot more sense than assuming the supernatural. Assuming the supernatural is just a lazy approach to anything, in my opinion. Like, I know people that don't believe in the afterlife, but do believe in ghosts.
How the fuck do you do that?
I think that the technical term is doublethink.
And
You're holding strongly to two completely oppositional beliefs. I totally know people who believe in ghosts but do not believe in the afterlife. So I mean, it's it just, to me, that specifically is just emblematic of, well, if you believe in supernatural things or superstitious things, it's like that video that I uploaded to YouTube where Kai was like, perhaps the Minotaur is Bigfoot. Like, you're just explaining the things however you want to explain them, and how things actually happen has no bearing to you. You're disconnected enough from reality that the real answers seem to not be interesting to you. And at that point, I disengage from that conversation. I'm not interested in, you know, like, I love magic and the occult and stuff, but I don't believe in magic spells, and I don't believe that the, you know, occultist rituals do anything, right? I just love the aesthetics of it. I think that the trope of forbidden knowledge is one of the most fun and compelling literary tropes out there. So, like, clandestine societies and occultism and demonic imagery and shit like that, I eat that shit up, because it falls in the umbrella of, like, forbidden knowledge, things that you shouldn't know, right? And that's like a very I think that that's a byproduct of, like, rebellion against very puritanical elements, where, you know, people are like, oh, I'm gonna live openly and I'm gonna believe in this shit that I have nothing to back it up, and, you know, I don't need to justify my arguments. Well, you know, there's a flip side to that. People are going to believe the exact opposite of that. People are going to believe that, you know, oh, well, if you've got your good guy magician, then I've got my bad guy magician, and my bad guy magician's going to do things that your good guy magician wouldn't do. And it's just like, you have ceased to be interesting in the real world. But I love that dynamic of, we must hide this from the world, and you're not allowed to know it, and to know it would be to be in some way corrupted. I love that shit. I eat that shit up.
Alright, so fun fact, I did a little bit of number crunching. In order for something to be cold enough to actually radiate in the radio waves, it would have to be like 5 to 10 Kelvin, which is beyond absurdly cold. So let's go with maybe it emits in the very long infrared to low microwave, and that would at least put it at like 100 Kelvin, which is at least reasonable. But regardless,
you would be able to have chemical interactions at 100 Kelvin.
Yes. 5 Kelvin, shit is moving so slow. Oh my god. I mean,
they're the ants of the alien world. They just take a really long time to do anything.
It's not that it couldn't exist, it's just that, you know, I was curious because we were talking about it, and I was like, how cold would that actually have to be? Because I didn't think about it when I brought it up, obviously.
Well, I mean, yeah, we're just being wildly speculative, right? Like, yeah. I think that it's important that you keep those things grounded in what we know, but when we're talking about stuff that we don't know that we don't know, it's like, well, fuck, dude, let's just use our imaginations a little bit, right?
Yep.
That's right. It's still fun visualizing all this. My stance is more scientific now. The thought of God is cool, but just no proof other than a mystical book. It's not even a mystical book, okay? The King James version of the Bible, was very likely translated from its original language by Marlowe or Shakespeare or some other writer of the period, specifically making a version of King James Bible that would fit King James narrative. And like, when you look at older versions of the Bible, it's pretty clear that creative liberties were taken with that. And our best guess at the people who wrote the Bible was a bunch of like fucking sheep fuckers from like 300 years after the time that Jesus would have roamed the earth, you know? Like, in a game of telephone that takes that long, even with that as your like primary source, you're grasping at straws to think that it's anything other than like parables, you know. That's why I just have trouble respecting biblical literalism, you know, the like fundamentalist belief that every single word of the Bible is literally true.
Oh my god, I just
Those people
I can't
exist.
handle people like that.
Those
No,
people
they
exist.
actually do, and my family has one, and I cannot communicate with her. She tries, and I'm just like, I have to tell her to stop. Otherwise,
Listen,
I will actually.
I love everyone, and if you're a biblical fundamentalist, I love you too. But the problem is there are contradictions in the words of the book itself. So it's literally impossible for everything to be literally true. But even having pointed that out, it's very obviously a book of stories, exaggerated stories. And if those stories tend to give people a better sense of compassion, or, you know, make them want to be a more honest person or a better lover, or, you know, if there are things that you take away from those stories, I don't give a fuck what it takes for you to be a decent person. And if that's what gets you there, then I'm all for it. The problem is that it's been so accepted through hundreds and hundreds of years of history that people have just sort of blindly accepted a lot of things that they shouldn't have, because it came with that same baggage, that same, you know, everybody was ascribing to the same sort of generic set of beliefs for such a long time in our culture that people start making decisions with that as data instead of data as data. And that's when I have a problem with it. You know, whatever you believe in the privacy of your own home, with you not hurting anybody and fucking not forcing that shit on me, I don't give a fuck. I don't care what you believe. I love you regardless. You can be an awesome person regardless of what faith you ascribe to. But I take issue with people making rules that affect my life with that as their basis for it. So fundamentalists, that's my only problem, is whenever they get political power. Beyond that, I actually don't really care that much, but I have no respect for that perspective, because when I've read the Bible like 5 times, I got a pretty clear picture that it knows that it's not literal. The piece of literature knows that it's not being literal. It knows that it's a collection of stories that are intended to impart certain lessons. Some of those lessons are less good than others. I think anybody that recalls the story of Job can sort of attest to that. The whole point of that shit is like, you better believe in God no matter what, because you might get boils and your wife killed and have to reproduce the fucking world with your daughters that got you drunk so you could fuck them. Like, there's
That sounds fucked up. Wait, that actually happened in the Bible?
oh yeah.
No,
Yeah,
I
dude.
never read that shit. So the
Job's
first
wife
time go ahead.
Job's wife made the horrific mistake of looking back at a city that God told them not to look at while he destroyed it, and she turned into a pillar of salt. Am I thinking of Job, or am I thinking of Lot?
Couldn't tell you, but that's insane.
Well, one of those two biblical figures, forgive me for if I mislabeled them. I can't remember if it's Job or Lot, but basically they were like God's favorite, and their life was awesome, and they had a bunch of, like, you know, he had like daughters, and he had you know, land and livestock, and his life was good, and he praised God every day, right? And God and the devil are like sitting behind the sidelines, right? And they're like, yo, the only reason that he loves you so much is because you've been so good to him. And so God's like, oh yeah, you think that that's the case? All right, well, how about this? And like, he gives him boils, and he makes his whole family like covered in these fucking painful, awful boils that just made them ugly and uncomfortable, and you know, you can't fucking do anything 'cause you're covered in fucking boils, right? And I think I'm combining two stories of the Bible. It's Job. It is Job. Okay. And like over the course of this little bet, right? God just makes this guy's life a living hell. And every time that he makes his life a living hell, Job is just like, bruh, I actually love you, God, even though my life isn't going so swell. And yeah, I was mashing up two together. Lots of different story. Job is the favorite though. So he like kills his wife and children. He like collapses their home on them and crushes them all to death. And Job is still like, I love you, God, you're the best. And God is just like, see, Job still loves me. Told you so.
That sounds like the devil won that bet, I'm not gonna lie.
Right? Okay, and if that one concludes on a positive note, then it's like God pays him back all the stuff he destroyed double, but I'm pretty sure he just leaves him like that. He's just like, see, I told you that he would praise my name even though I am not giving him a great life right now. And it's like, what is the point of that?
That's an excellent book.
Lot, on the other hand, Lot, I believe, his deal was he lived like on the outskirts of Sodom and Gomorrah, I believe. And for some reason, God sent angels to Sodom and Gomorrah for the purpose of like evaluating stuff, right? So like he was one of them to go and like check the place out and see if, you know, there were people that were really sinning. And so these angels go and they run into Lot. And Lot has these like beautiful virgin daughters. And, you know, for some reason he like invites the angels into his home and he's like showing them hospitality and stuff. But then the residents of Sodom and Gomorrah come knocking on his door, right? And they're like, yo, we heard you had angels in your house. We want to rape them because we're from Sodom and Gomorrah, and that's the kind of shit that we do here, right? And I think it's worth noting here, Sodom as in sodomy, right? And Gomorrah as in some sex thing that was so cool and so depraved that we have no idea what it could possibly be. So Sodom and Gomorrah are like these two cities where it's just full of sinners and you know, all this bad shit's happening there. And these guys literally show up at Lot's door because they heard that he had angels in there and they want to rape these angels. And Lot's like, no, I'm not going to let you rape these fucking angels, dude. I'm not letting you do it. And they're like, we're gonna do it. You're not gonna stop this mob. We're gonna get some of that sweet angel puss, right? And Lot is like, okay, well, I have these two virgin daughters. You guys can rape my virgin daughters instead of the angels.
Oh my god.
And so Lot's like ready to turn over his daughters, right? And there's divine intervention. You know, God like waves his magic wand and fixes the situation. I don't remember the specifics of how it played out, but his daughters didn't get raped, and basically Lot and his wife and his virgin daughters are told to leave the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah while God purifies them with fire. And so he's like literally gonna rain fireballs down on Sodom and Gomorrah, right? And he tells them, do not look back. And Lot and his daughters and his wife are all like marching away from Sodom and Gomorrah. And I have to imagine that they're hearing like Wilhelm screams and that like demonic shrieking with the fucking machine gun fire and demons like, right? They're just tearing up these two fucking cities. And Lot's wife looks back and God turns her into a pillar of fucking salt.
Bro, she shouldn't have looked.
And so Lot and his two virgin daughters go into the cave, and like while they're in the cave, they're basically like, okay, so like the world is over. He just killed like everybody here. Guess we have to repopulate. And they get Lot drunk so that he will repopulate with them.
That's nasty.
What's the moral there?
No, don't fucking live in that city. This is why I did never read that shit. So I was going to say, I didn't even realize how much, I guess, atheistic I was until I took a course on comparative religions. When I was a kid, I didn't really do the whole church thing. My mom never made me go. She tried to take us a couple times. I fucking hated it, mainly because I had to dress up for it, and I absolutely fucking hated dress clothes, so it just made the entire experience awful for me. And then as I was sitting there in one of these classes, they were talking about whatever the first book is, how the universe is made, and I was like, this just isn't right. Do people actually believe this kind of shit? Anyway, years
Jaws.
and years go by.
Jaws. The world is only 6,000 years old, you fucking heathen. But continue, please.
True, I forgot. So, I get to an actual university, and I'm taking comparative religions, and they were talking about the afterlife and one of these things, and I've raised my hand. I'm like, how are you supposed to experience things when all of the electric field that is generating the impulses in your neurons have stopped firing? And he's like, well, some people believe that there's a soul in your body. And I was like, oh, people actually believe this? I shouted it out in class. I was astounded.
Like shocked.
This
Like
was
you
real.
really thought, oh no, that's like the Tooth Fairy people at a certain point realized that's not a thing. No.
Literally, I thought it was fucking Santa Claus. And I was mind blown. And this is how I went from basically having no friends at the academy to having friends at the academy, because I was like, you actually had the balls to say that in the middle of class, and I was like, who the fuck would believe this shit? Like I said, I was an asshole, so no one had any reason to talk to me until after this moment of an epiphany in my life.
I used to be on the militant atheism train, where I was like, no, you don't understand. Religion is just a tool that's been used historically to rob the poor and the powerless of their power and conscript them into, giving away a bunch of their money and resources and accumulating that so that you can retain power. I used to go on all these different rants about, why you shouldn't believe in such and such religion and all this, that, and the other. And at the end of the day, now that I'm approaching 30 and shit, it just doesn't matter. I've maybe convinced 2 or 3 people over the years, but
it's not even worth the argument with most people.
It's not even a question about being worth the argument. It's more about if you are otherwise behaving in a way which allows society to operate and which allows me to enjoy my freedom, then I'm not even gonna approach you to tell you that I think that this thing you believe in is wrong. It's to a degree, yeah, it's not worth the effort, but to another degree, it's more about you can believe whatever you want to believe. I've been I've had moments of suicidality where I did not have a religious belief system to lean on, and some people need that. And I've had moments where, I was deeply devastated and looking for meaning in life, and I didn't have religion to help direct me, and I can see the appeal of it. I can understand how being capable of that type of belief might be beneficial to you, even if I personally don't think that it's real. And so I'm not willing to say that it's a pure negative anymore. It's definitely a net negative. If you look at history, if you look at the abuses of power that have taken place over the course of literally thousands of years at this point, it's definitely a net negative. But is it a total negative? I don't actually think that it is anymore. And I say that as, the most devout, secular humanist out there. I don't actually really care if you believe in something that I don't believe in. I just care whether or not you seek to impose those beliefs upon me. And
It's valid.
by virtue of that, I can have all kinds of fantastic conversations with like my Mormon friends, for instance, who much like what Violent Ed was alluding to in the chat earlier, I have a Mormon friend that's starting to lean in the direction of, honestly, I think that the Bible might be talking about like alien encounters and high technology that primitive humans weren't like. They have this whole other interpretation of it that's like a meta-analysis of the religion. But you know, it still doesn't pass my sniff test, and I'm still not like chomping at the bit to join, but I have a lot more respect for the attempt to ground those beliefs in reality. You know what I mean? Like trying to come up with a way for it to work that fits within what we know to be possible. I'm all about that. I love that. I think that that's actually a super interesting and compelling take on those types of religions. I just don't buy it. And I will never go about pretending that I buy it, because even if I were to pretend that I was this devout Christian that believed in every word of scripture, God would know that I was faking it if he's real.
That's why I've always thought that there's some line of thought that basically you should just believe just in case. I don't remember what it's called.
That is Pascal's wager.
Thank you. I could not remember. It is a horrible logical analysis of the situation. It's like, so you're gonna believe in one of these things, say every other one of them is wrong. You're just gonna hedge your bets just on the off chance that you're right, and then if you are right, the dude who does actually exist there at the end knows that you only did it for this one reason.
Yeah, you have to do some like real fun mental gymnastics to walk away from a read through of the Bible where you think you can fake it to make it. Currently, I have belief in any religion, dark carnival law, only if there's proof. Yeah, I mean, I'm open to whatever evidence suggests to me. You know, if we find a relic tomorrow that like confirms that not only Jesus existed, which we actually have, the Romans kept documents in triplicate of pretty much every legal transaction, and Jesus, I if I'm not mistaken, there was a man that was executed for being quote unquote the king of the Jews. Like that's a historical fact.
Named Jesus, that's for sure. He did not live whenever the Bible said that he did, nor was he born on Christmas, which who knows how the fuck that became a thing.
Oh, I can tell you how that became a thing. Every single pagan religion had a winter festival. How do you make your significantly less appealing religion more palatable to a bunch of pagans? You have a winter festival. So in particular, the origin of the Christmas myth starts with an attempt by, I believe, I want to say the Saxons, but I could be totally wrong here. But it was a post-Roman civilization that was trying to be more appealing to people that believed in like the Roman pantheon. And it also happened to have worked for Norsemen as well. They also had a winter festival, and the inclusion of these wintry festivities to sort of supplant the pre-existing pagan winter festivities, which, keep in mind, pagans, their whole religions were grounded on like a sort of belief in like natural spirits and gods of like observable things, and you know, they had like big reverence for harvests and stuff. So like the Norsemen, they would like do human sacrifices for harvest, you know. The Romans actually, for Saturnalia, early on in the Roman Empire, they also did human sacrifices, and they eventually toned that down to animal sacrifices because it was more palatable. But it was just a way to get people hyped up about your religion at a certain time of year that also happened to be associated with like harvest and winter celebrations.
Interesting. I did not know that, obviously. I just knew that based on the way
I'll bet you 2 pelts of myrrh it happened.
based on the way the astronomy was described, many people have gone back and looked, and it's like, if the stars actually look like how they're described in the Bible,
It would have been
Jesus'
like
birthday
June.
would have been in July.
Yeah.
June or July, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, there's a much simpler way to disprove that as well.
What would that be?
The shepherds bringing in their sheep. The sheep wouldn't have been out grazing in the field during winter.
Oh. Okay. That's like pretty fucking basic logic right there.
Yeah, like you don't graze
know
the
what
sheep
the
in the
fuck
winter. You have like
I don't know what the fuck sheep do in the winter.
you have like stores of hay and stuff like that you feed that kind of livestock. You don't like let them out into the cold and then round them up being cold yourself while doing so. No, you feed them in your barn. You feed them in your manger where supposedly Jesus was born, right? That's where you keep all the hay and the preserved animal foods. Wait, that's owl shit. He smells like... The Dark Carnival is God.
Interesting. Had never even thought about it like that.
I mean, yeah, there's multiple things. Most of what we consider Christian holidays, like Easter, right? It's Easter weekend, right?
Oh yeah.
I believe that Easter
Wouldn't they
specifically
come back
was
from the
robbed
dead?
from a Gaelic, I want to say a Gaelic god named Yostar,
Nice.
and she was a god of fertility, and of course one of the symbols of fertility is an egg, and so
Nice.
the modern
Who's the
trope,
sex god?
like if you looked at like interpretations of modern Easter, right? Why in the fuck there was no part of the Bible where Jesus shit out eggs and a big ass rabbit showed up. Like, that's the rabbit and the egg are both symbols of fertility from pagan religions, and those got co-opted into the resurrection myth again to help sell the religion to pagans so that they would convert. Like, no,
Also,
we've
speaking
got
of the resurrection thing, because I brought it up, more than likely, no one actually resurrected. He wasn't actually dead in the first place. People were so fucking bad at telling him he was dead back then. People
Oh,
were
yeah.
bad at telling him he was dead even in the 1800s. But that's
bro,
not
I feel dead
paranormal.
every morning when I wake up.
There you go. But no, like they used to. This was actually a thing I saw in a horror movie. I looked it up to see if it was true. They fucking installed bells on people's graves because they were so bad at pronouncing people dead that they would bury them. Then you would have a bell if you just woke up in your fucking coffin. And
What
would
if I
just
told
ring
you?
it.
What if I told you that people still make coffins like that and like modern equivalents of that type of coffin as well? Because it still happens
Believe it.
even today.
Oh yeah, because we don't actually know when the body dies. We
Yeah,
have
like death is like a
tons of
process.
skin. Yeah, exactly. There are, which is why, and I had this conversation with one of my friends who was like devoutly religious, and I had one of my doctor friends weigh in on the matter. At no point does a doctor pronounce somebody dead without fear in their voice, because they know that there is a distinct possibility that this person is not actually dead. They can only say to their highest degree of certainty that this person will not continue to function.
Our boy Violent Ed, Micah, in the chat there, just said "Saved by the Bell." That is also literally the origin of that phrase. It's not like, oh, you were saved from some uncomfortable thing in school because the bell rang. Saved by the Bell actually derives from the Victorian coffin bell thing.
Oh, okay. You know, that makes a whole lot of sense. Nice.
Yeah, no, death is like, it's a long process. Everybody likes to imagine that death is this this quick thing, this binary thing, but
yeah, one
it's
second
not.
You're alive, the next you're dead, but no.
It's not. Brain death is not even a clear indicator of whether or not the person may resuscitate.
But that's
And
the
like,
best we
again, you can
got.
say with like a high degree of certainty, oh, this person's brain has not received oxygen in the last 4 hours. But if I'm not mistaken, people have survived those exact circumstances.
Not 4 hours.
Hours.
I had to look this up. I had to look this up. It was something like 48 minutes or something is the longest that someone has been submerged in cold water, no oxygen to their entire body. There have been people that have been on machines.
If I'm
that
not
are
mistaken, the person who holds that record right now, you're not going to believe me when I say this, David Blaine.
for holding breath?
Yeah.
I thought he only held his breath for like 18 minutes or some shit.
I don't remember how long it was, but I know that whenever he did that stunt, he actually got that world record.
24 minutes, yeah. It was 24 minutes for actually holding your breath, but I'm talking about people who have been submerged underwater. Like typically they
Oh,
fall to
like
ice,
somebody
and
who
their
would,
bodies-
somebody who we would have assumed drowned.
yes,
Yeah.
but because their body was so cold, it was
It slowed down the
essentially-
like metabolic processes enough that
exactly
they
And something in
registered
the
as dead or
high
whatever, but they
40s.
weren't actually.
Yeah, something in the high 40s of minutes. But obviously, people live much longer than that on machines and whatnot. This is strictly I'm gonna say quote unquote natural process. As
If
natural as
I'm
drowning is,
if
I
I'm not
guess.
mistaken, there has been a person who has survived multiple hours of supposed oxygen deprivation to the brain.
Let's see.
Maybe I'm making this up. I could be totally wrong, but I don't remember where I read it or saw it, but I just remember feeling like it was a reputable source. But I could be totally wrong.
I just like googling it. It just tells you how long on average, which just says 9 or 10 minutes. Which
Yeah, we've already established that the
Right.
fringe cases already like vastly outweigh
okay,
the,
so
the
there
like common.
is an article of someone surviving cardiac arrest for an hour and 41 minutes with no pulse, but that doesn't say anything about whether or not if he was on a machine giving him oxygen. Let's see.
Well, I mean, the thing about
Choose-
that is with a machine that's giving like a life support machine,
Yeah.
you can survive for like days with that shit, even whenever your body is
Yeah.
basically completely dysfunctional.
So this
Need a
kid
podcast?
lived
Bro, I stream every
Yeah.
day on Twitch. I know it's not the same.
101 minutes of CPR. Damn, that's some dedicated parents right there.
Oh, was it a parent,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah, a parent giving 101 minutes of CPR to their child, and he lived.
Oh my god. That actually brings tears to my eyes. Because imagine that has to be such a
22-month-old yeah.
you have to be like so
22
desperate
months.
in those moments, right? Like you're just not willing to let go, and not being willing to let go actually save their child's life. That is like some next level feel good shit. Damn broke
Not
ribs though. Who
2
gives a
years old,
about some
bro.
broken ribs if you get to live? God damn. Oh my god, that
I mean,
actually got a
he's
tear
not
out of
even
my
gonna
eye.
be able to say.
I can just picture the desperation of that fucking 101 minutes and how
That would be beyond what I could imagine, actually.
it
I
might
don't think
be
that I
beyond
have-
imagining, but I can't help but feel like basically any parent would probably try to do the same. You know, maybe not everybody has the same kind of willpower, but I just feel like anybody put in a similar situation just probably wouldn't stop trying. Fuck ribs. Violent Ed don't need no ribs. Yeah, dude, Violent Ed wants to suck his own dick. Ribs are just an impediment. You heard it here first, folks. Violent Ed wants to suck his own dick.
So yeah, but so that's with CPR. The longest one that I see of like nothing at all, and I'm not even saying this is like a super reputable source, but this is like 45 minutes or so.
Okay, maybe I'm like misremembering something about like a 2 or 4 hour situation, but
I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. I was curious, like if something like that actually happened, that would be crazy.
I have like a very tenuous grasp on whether or not that's something that I read or something that my mind is just like feeding me, because I'm like, I genuinely can't remember where I've heard it, so I think it might just be bullshit that I pulled out of my ass. But I prefaced it by saying that I don't actually have a clear recollection of why I think that.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
It's a style. He was frozen for a few days. Who was frozen for a few days? These nuts? Ah. Well, bro, it's like 4:30 in the morning here.
Yeah, it's like 2:30, and I was up at like, I want to say 6:20 something. So I'm pretty fucking tired.
Yeah.
You're gonna put this up on YouTube, you're gonna get a comment about I said something in some moment that wasn't entirely fucking accurate, and I'm just gonna hate myself for it because I know that I said something wrong and I'm just not even thinking about it.
Oh, you vastly overestimate my online presence. The only comment that I get is from friends of mine that watched like 4 minutes of the video, and they're like, great job.
Fair enough. I'm just imagining there's gonna be that one guy out there who just watching this is like, that fucking lied.
I can't believe that this man thinks that he's a fucking physicist and an electrical engineer, and he said this. What a fucking idiot. Can you believe that he thought that there might be a fucking organism that operates at 5 Kelvin and radiates radio waves? What a fucking idiot. Can you believe that he attested that that's definitely factually true?
These are the types of things that I fear.
I'll let you know if we get any such comments, bro. All right. But, ladies and gentlemen, if you're still with us or if you happen to be watching the VOD, we are only here on this planet for a very limited amount of time, and I am flattered you would choose to spend any fraction of that with me. Take it easy, get some good rest, and for fuck's sake, love yourself, y'all. Peace. Night, Jaws. Good night, Mike. Y'all enjoy your long weekend to the best of your abilities. I will be back tomorrow. Oh yeah, this is the kind of conversation that I crave, boys. That's why we kept doing it for like 2 or 3 hours. I am glad that you guys would entertain all of our speculative back and forth, trying to be like scientifically literate while also talking about shit that has no basis in science. All right, night, boys.